Hello and welcome to Benno and Hamflett in Your House, a podcast reviewing WWE's iconic New Generation B shows in order from the bust back to the boom. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. It's In Your House 14. It's Revenge of the Taker. How are you? In Rochester, New York. Well, I'm not. I'm in Hanoi, but it kind of counts. How are we? How's it going?
All good, all good. I mean, obviously, as our listeners and viewers will know, it's simply only been a fortnight since we last spoke. And yet, like, magically, it sort of feels like a little bit longer, doesn't it? You know, it's like the times, like, they change so quickly. You kind of, 1 minute, you know, like, I could be in, you know, the northeast of England or the northeast of England, while you could be in anywhere from Vietnam to Japan to Thailand. You know, you take one look at the Premier League and, like, the teams of the Merseyside area and the Northeast are finally set the way they should be for the first time, and then you look again and it changes. It's just they're wild times we're living in, aren't they? Wild times.
I don't know about you, mate, but I'm just very glad to be top of the above Liverpool league that's going on right now in football. Which hopefully people listen to this early on Saturday. And it's still the case, and things happen to completely change.
That's funny, yeah, because we're atop the Newcastle League, which means that we've both qualified for the Legends Champions League, haven't we? That's it. We're in our separate petty little groups.
It's tough being the other team, innit? You say that about traveling, like, I get it literally all the time. It's horrible. Any place I go, especially, to be honest, especially Thailand and Vietnam, if you get a local who starts talking, it's like, oh, where are you from? You're like, England. And they're like, oh, whereabouts? And you're like, Liverpool. It is annoyingly, it's like, oh, like the football team. I was like, yeah, but no. And then they start going, oh yeah, I support Liverpool, or my family supports Liverpool, and you have to kind of like, all right, I support Everton. They're a thing too. And I know it's horrible because, like, any, like, sport show, I've seen like 30 like literal Liverpool stores in Thailand. There was a few in Japan when I was there. Mm-hmm. The supporters in Vietnam. I don't think I've seen one Everton shirt, mate. Outside the hooky one that I was going to buy once at a market, which I might still do, the Everton third kit. It's been a very, very sad sight, and I don't think I've seen much Sunderland knocking around either. To be fair, I'm not seeing much Newcastle either, so, you know, I don't know what that says. You know, the Gaza years didn't get them over in this territory, but it's tough being that type of fan.
I wonder if the Saudi paymasters have lost interest since they finally got WrestleMania. They've looked at which sports washing is working better, and they think we'll stick with the Fed rather than the football. Maybe it's that, I don't know. Because you'd imagine at this point that you think they'd be shipping the shirts all over the world, wouldn't you, just to get that blanket coverage?
Honestly, wrestling should do the same, though. That's the only other thing. Like, obviously, like, you know, you joke there about, like, yeah, there's been a little bit of a time between recording things. At some point, we're going to get the Retro Boys making a joke about, oh, yeah, that Benno, who used to work in this territory as Richard Benson, is going to win their world title. That will put some butts in seats. I know that day is coming. But, you know, we try and get ahead of things and we try and record things. Mm-hmm. But obviously, there was a couple in the can, as we mentioned on the last show, because I had Steph out with me here in Thailand. We went to Japan as well, did a bit of wrestling stuff. Maybe we'll do a bit of a recap on that on Housekeeping. But, like, Japan was, like, you know, obviously, you know, wrestling mecca, wrestling stuff absolutely everywhere. Thailand and Vietnam, not a fucking thing. Like, the only wrestling related merchandise or anything that I've seen, I'm not just saying it because I'm wearing it, is literally this Dennis Rodman NWO t-shirt that I picked up. And, like, I immediately obviously sent you a picture of it once I seen it. But even that, it was in, like, the world famous MBK, which is a very nice kind of second-handy dodgy shopping mall in Thailand that sells a lot of possibly not real things on the bottom floor. But it was just there amongst, like, t-shirts of, like, NBA players and, like, rappers and stuff like that. And it was just, like, very clearly, whoever had gone on Google Images and just searched the word Dennis Rodman had found, like, this print of Dennis Rodman with an NWO logo on it that said Rodzilla on it, and was like, oh, that'll do. That's Dennis Rodman. We'll make a t-shirt out of it. And I reckon I might be the first ever person who's bought it from that mall who actually knew what the letters NWO meant. But I don't know. Enough about me and you in 1996 in our schools.
Anybody who's watched, who's seen me on What Culture or on Benno and Hamflett in a dashing, sort of like almost like Team Taz coloured orange and black Adidas jacket. That was look at it, man! Look at it. That was a bottom floor MBK find when we had the family holiday.
Is that where you got your 7-Eleven t-shirt as well?
Yeah, my wife got me that from a night market, and, like, it's just. Honestly, to be honest, I wish I'd done the sort of second suitcase gimmick and just loaded it up, because when you're there, it's a bit easy, isn't it? Just be like, just get the one or two things. But I've started, when I see a t-shirt like that and I'm thinking, God, I could have and should have done a bit more damage. Because honestly, you need to spend time with it, don't you? Because there's that much. It's easy to get overwhelmed and just pick up the one thing or something. But there was loads. It was incredible.
we're kind of doing it now. I can't help myself, but like when I was in Japan, that's what it was like. We went to like Taduken, like the big wrestling store, which was like a wrestling museum. I think I sent you about 200 photos that day.
Oh, it was amazing.
From that
Incredible.
store and videos. I was just excited. Go, look what they got! Look what they got here. They got old WCW videos, and they've got like signed masks and boots and merch and all kinds of stuff. But it was the same thing. It's like I'm traveling around Asia. I've got one suitcase. Like I've got no space for this signed Alex Shelley and Kushida Time Splitters t-shirt. But Michael, it was £2.50 in the bargain bin outside, and I couldn't help but spend that money. And I've got so honestly, like it's become a running joke on Grapple. Like I'm walking around there, like what, like 5 New Japan t-shirts. I've got a referee's polo top from the G1 from 3 years ago, which, as I keep saying on Grapple shows, is now the smartest item of clothing that I own. Which I know you feel the same way about your 7-Eleven t-shirt that you got in there in Thailand. But this has got a collar, Michael. So like, yeah, I've started having to throw clothes away just so I can store all of this wrestling merch, such was the wealth of it in Japan. But unfortunately, that's not quite the case here in Vietnam or Thailand.
You're going to end up being like the Hebner brothers of New Japan. You're going to be flogging the shirts out of the back of the truck, and you're going to get like President Tanahashi is going to find you out and like never let you come to the shows ever again. Or he's going to bring you on full time because he knows you're in that part of the world. Maybe that's your next move. And like you could do, you remember when like New Japan was hot in the West and it was still quite difficult to get the proper merch first run? You could be the conduit, Benno. Maybe that's the answer.
All it takes is one trip to Corrigan Hall, which was amazing, by the way, and literally a few half-price t-shirts, and all of a sudden I'm in, and we're back in a boom period. That is all it takes, and that's why New Japan is back, and that's why in 2026, Benno and Hamflett in your Corrigan is going to be the show that we're going to be launching next year on. But maybe some more of that when we do get to housekeeping. I should say, as much as like we love buying wrestling merchandise, you think they've got much wrestling merchandise going in Rochester, New York? I reckon. I don't know. Feels like a wrestling town, doesn't it? It feels like a one. Feel like it's been visited a lot over the years.
Yeah, like you hear Rochester again. If somebody said to you Rochester as a wrestling fan, you'd know it was in New York because it's like the wrestling's been in town a lot, and there's a few names that stick. I'm pretty sure R.I.P. Mr. Brody Lee, I think, was from Rochester, New York, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, of course, yeah, the indie legend from that Rochester area as well, yeah.
And like, a few of those sort of like, because I know there's the Buffalo Kids and stuff, but a lot of them like did that loop around that neck of the woods. And it's like we always say, if you're New York State, you're New York, aren't you? Like you're going to see the Fed at the Garden, or you're going to sort of all those like iconic New York wrestling haunts because you're in the state. It's close enough. Like I love that. When you get if you ever get the train from JFK instead of the taxi, and it just takes you through all those like suburban areas, and it's like they're just streets with houses on to them, but to you, you're thinking you have no idea how close you live to Manhattan. You're going past just rows and rows of people's gardens, living their normal life in upstate New York or wherever it is now. And I'm cursing them. I'm like Manhattan's your commute. It does my head in.
Little do those people know that me and Michael, our dream is to live in Albany, New York, because it says New York at the end of it. It'd be cool to have that as your address, wouldn't it? Totally. I've had that exact same experience and kind of just stared out the window of me Uber all the way to the hotel going, oh, what a life these people must live here in Albany or Rochester or one of the many New York
Poughkeepsie,
suburbs.
So they can go and watch a 1993 Raw. Like, there's so many of them, man, honestly. But
Proper times, but...
I was just going to say about like Rochester as well. I don't know, like before we get into the show proper, I suppose, because we'll start with a bit of a new one for us with a relatively small free for all. Obviously, we've got a Sunday morning superstar to speak of, like getting to see the empty venue because we had some Sunday morning superstars footage that we're able to locate. Like, and while it was still mostly an ice rink that they just happened to have dropped a ring in the middle of, like it still told the story of like not quite back. It was very much like on the way to being back rather than being back. It was a bit like unvarnished and a bit sort of like you can kind of imagine within 4 or 5 years, Rochester, New York might not be lucky enough to be getting pay-per-views all of a sudden. One of them sort of places.
Massively so. Like it does. It feel like, and that was the thing, wasn't it? During this period, a lot of running the Northeast kind of made sense. As like, they'll still turn up, they'll still come in this area. They almost kind of became regional, didn't they? Not by choice in this point there, the Fed. But no, totally. I thought the same thing, and I was looking at like the empty seats and looking at it, going, it looks a bit shit, it looks a bit run down. But I bet the Pepsi tastes even better, and the popcorn's even sweeter there because it's an American arena, isn't it? It's an American arena in the 90s. But as you rightly say, it is the home for our show that we are talking about today. And if you haven't listened to it already, do listen to our housekeeping that was obviously out 2 weeks ago, talking all of the build, talking WrestleMania 13, and talking all of the gigantic changes in the WWF during this period. But I feel like nothing kind of sums up like the change in this period. Like the juxtaposition for me between the VHS cover for this In Your House that we're talking about today and the poster for this In Your House that we're talking today. Like, I'll start with the VHS cover because I think that's quite interesting because it's, I mean, obviously the name of the show, obviously Undertaker winning at WrestleMania 13 and being the WWF World Champion at this point does feel a little bit at odds with obviously the narrative we've been going through about 1997 being the year of Steve and the year of change and stuff. But like, I feel like this In Your House 14 VHS cover is very 90s. It's very of the same ilk, really, isn't it? Of the other In Your House covers that we've gone for. It's an Undertaker-y theme one, so it's a little bit purple, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a grim look, but it's still the flashy colours, and it's still very, very kid-friendly WWF that would fit anywhere in 1996. And then the poster that they put out for it, there's no Undertaker to be seen. There's no Mankind to be seen. This show is called Revenge of the Taker, and it's just a gigantic picture of Steve Austin and then a second picture of Steve Austin kicking Shawn Michaels in the bollocks. And I feel like nothing sums up the juxtaposition of this era than those two images.
Well, look at that, right? You see, Benno, because look at that. Like, if you look at that poster, what's it doing? It's actually letting you know that there's two shows booked on the 20th of April and the 11th of May. And they're promising you, without giving you any information, look, we've realised Steve Austin's getting hot, so we don't know what he's going to be doing, but we promise you he's going to be there. Like,
he's going to be there.
Yeah, like they're already obviously thinking, right, they like Undertaker, but he never drew. They like Bret, but he never drew. They like Shawn, but he's lost his smile. So Austin it is, and they'll just, that's the guarantee. He's the one guy that like you're going to see whichever town you go to on April 20th or May 11th. And then presumably that poster was made before WrestleMania. And then he goes and gets himself injured and has to get the knee brace on. So then the worry is, Steve, we need you fit, mate. We've got you booked for 2 In Your Houses. We can't lose you at this point. So on he goes.
Yeah, and that's it. Obviously, the change in what the advertised lineup here is a big part of the story here as well. But it just tells you like how immediately important he is at this point in 1997, and how much they're gonna rely on him even more as it goes through the year. Because like, I guess that's just not a note that the person who put the VHS cover there got. Because like I say, that is very, very old school when you look at it. Even down to like that Steve Austin picture they've got here on the VHS cover. That looks like almost Ringmaster era Steve. He's not in the shape that he was in 1997. He's a little bit podgy. He's just missing $1 Million Man standing in the background with $1 million belt. Like, yeah, it really is a tale of two feds.
The one for that, because I remember that picture of Austin was on the cover of the British version of Stone Cold Said So. You remember the VHS?
Yeah, because he couldn't have the blood. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it looks so shit, didn't it? I hated that. It's like, that's Ringmaster. That's not Stone Cold Steve Austin. Fuck off. Can't fool me.
The big giveaway is the white wrist tape, isn't it?
Yes,
like the big giveaway on that image is the white wrist tape. Yeah, always pissed me off that.
Yeah, of course.
Bret's semi-babyface Bret, because he's got a bit of a snarl on, but he's got the gold and orange leaf jacket that he had from the Survivor Series. So there's a bit of babyface there. I want to talk about. He gets. I think we've given the Undertaker a very fair shake in this podcast. We were critical of him when he was having the most boring matches of all time in 1995. We were praising him when he kind of rebuilt his career thanks to Mick Foley. And I want to put him over here. Style icon Undertaker on the front cover of this. Like the winged eagle, the hat, the brand new fingerless gloves. Like, I think it's a pretty good look for the dead man, Like, it's not... I think 1998 is probably where he finds the modernized version of himself. And I think, and I apologize to Matty Edwards, whose ears will be burning, I think he looks complete tit in the Ministry of Darkness in 1999.
Massively.
But this is a guy sort of trying to make the new era work, isn't it? You can see him he's got his leather look on the back cover as well. Mankind, the lazy bastards, they've just flipped the image. So if you look, he's kind of doing the exact same pose. They've just put him like lazy bastards, man, honestly. And it wouldn't be Benno and Hamflett In Your House without me flagging up that the 14 is misaligned with the In Your House logo on the spine as well. But because they'll never get that right, I think, as long as any of us live. And they've spoiled one of the surprises on the back as well. Like, it just says plus, and then they give away the reveal of Honky Tonk Man's main man as well. So nice one, Silver Vision. We love you. Thank you to all. Look, when we do this, analysis of the cover art, we do it with love in our hearts, because seeing that in a Woolworths, I was wishing for that job in Enfield, wishing for it. There was nowhere that seemed more appealing in the UK to work than a video warehouse in Enfield.
See, there's 2 points there. I could have used you on the grapple quiz last week, where obviously Enfield was the answer of where these VHSs were made, but also it made me think of like the kid who's getting ruined there by finding out that it is actually Billy Gunn, aka Rockabilly, that's the surprising match. Is the same kid as me who was in Woolworths in 1992 going, what does Repo Man versus Crush in the Clash for Demolition mean? Hang on, were these both in Demolition? I was that stupid kid. I couldn't work it out that much, but yeah, they've been ruining stuff in Enfield since back in 1992. It's the business that they had there. But like I say, this VHS cover does set us up for obviously this show today, as we've said, talking about taking place in Rochester and getting a little bit of luck earlier in the day, not included in the VHS. We do have a bit from the free-for-all, obviously the Sultan Flash Funk match, which was a match that took place, and that's probably the amount of conversation that we're going to have. But in addition to that, you did manage to source some material for us, Michael, of obviously superstars earlier in the day, and as you say, the empty arena made for some interesting viewing. For me, I was more interested in like what was going on with the sound system and how did Mankind manage to hack it, and how could Doc Hendricks somehow not find where he was in the arena looking for him? Why did Bret Hart get entrance music when there was nobody in the arena? This arena was just doing magical things on this superstar taping. But like for those who missed Housekeeping, we got a little bit of storytelling devices here to catch us up leading into the big show.
Yeah, this was it. It was pretty much like the show itself, as we'll get onto. This was they dedicated the time to the things that mattered. Ultimately, we had another recap of Mankind getting the fire in the eyes on the Undertaker. The bowels of the building. We're moving away from boiler rooms and stuff now. We're into just general dank rooms where Kevin Kelly has to find Mankind. But he does talk about how he talks about the Undertaker not being able to see and how he liked the smell of charred flesh. And Kevin Kelly, I have to give him a bit of credit because it reminded me of when he was in Brian Pillman's house. He's very good at sounding like appalled and scared by a heel's threats. So like you'll hear Kevin Kelly going, oh my God, whenever Mankind's saying something particularly gross about the Undertaker. So I quite like that. And then Bret, like I tell you what, I quite enjoyed Bret in a sort of in a cheeky mood with Jim Ross, because in setting up what's to come on the show later on, Jim Ross says Steve Austin's not here yet. I don't suppose you and Owen and Bulldog had anything to do with it. And he was like, us? Of course not. He's probably drunk in a gutter somewhere. He's probably got the jitters because I've beaten him so many times. And he's just like another one of these stupid American hyenas. And he's almost got a bit of like a wry smile selling the fact that he knows that like Owen and Davey have ran him off the road or something like that. And he's had his boys on the job just to stop Steve Austin even making it to work.
There's two things Bret's loving in this. He's loving throwing in, as I think we talked about in the last Housekeeping, that hyena shout. It's his favourite thing to say about Steve Austin. But like you say, yeah, he's also loving that like a Cheshire Cat. And he's also loving this line that he's come up with about where's Steve Austin? I don't know where he is. You might find him somewhere with a bottle of Mad Dog 2020. And I feel like he repeats that line about 3 different times, to the point that I was going to come on the show and go to you, Michael, what is this, like one of those weird American things, a Mad Dog 2020? What is it? Only for me to Google and to find out it was that. I don't know if you had it in your local off license in the Northeast, but like that, those colourful, like they weren't quite cider. Where I think they were maybe kind of vodka, like drinks that everyone was drinking in the park when we were, well, at least when I was a teenager in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's apparently what Bret Hart thought Steve Austin was on. Like it blew my mind. I didn't know it made it to America. Maybe it was bigger there, but I don't know if you can picture them or you remember them back in the day. I did work in an off license in my teenage years, so maybe that's where I'm pulling the knowledge from. But yeah, quite a very distinct reference from our Bretty.
Is that like a slightly beerier version of White Lightning? That white cider?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. It's like a
makes sense,
little bottle. Yeah. Like almost a squarish kind of bottle. Yeah. One of those, yeah.
A quantity over quality drink, wasn't it? Like, because it was cheap and you could just, it was marginally easy to taste as a kid because it was slightly cidery, but it was just really horribly boozy, wasn't it? There was Bret, I wrote down one of Bret's lines, because Jim Ross said, like, I think it's because I'm still fascinated by like the rise of Steve Austin, and just when we think they've almost like completed the job, you still get these like little extra details. And Jim Ross says, I can't explain the phenomenon with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Bret says, that's the whole point. Me neither. There's something wrong in America. The people that booed me for being a hero and they cheer that scumbag. And then he goes, if they need an open-handed slap across the face, I'll show them what a real hero's all about. I was like, well, all right, Bret.
Enough about Idris Gay this week, but yeah, like it's a weird line Brett's trying to walk here, because he tries to say, I don't know where this is coming from, that I hate Americans. I just hate the American fans. I'm not an American basher, but I hate all of these American people. It's like, I'm not sure where the line's supposed to be here, Brett. I think you're getting a bit confused in where you're kind of justifying it here, but yeah, that's another one he keeps. He's clearly, and it feels like that when we get to the match later, I think he is still workshopping stuff, isn't he? He's still trying to figure out where the line is. He does throw in a line here, doesn't he? About like is it the South African fans who are still cheering him? He always loved going back to that. Same as we talked about on Housekeeping with the British fans still knowing, who a good guy is and who a bad guy is. Like, he's just trying to find that line of where he can be the heel and he can be the knobhead, but his character can still be justified. And at the end of the day, as we often talk about, he can still be right because he's Bret Sargent Hart, and that's kind of what he's going for. But it is a bit all over the place.
It's a nice. I did like, because I'd forgotten the kind of the show long story as well. So watching this was a reminder of the stuff that was to come with Austin, because they show him. It's on the free for all, isn't it? Where you see to jump into the Flash Funk Sultan thing. It's almost like it only really exists for you to see that, like. Well, they don't. Sorry, that you don't see him arriving, because that's key to the show. But Vince, I think it's while like Flash Funk's entering, like there's some pyro, and Vince says, "What? You think that pyro's something? The roof's going to blow off here when Steve Austin gets here. He's not here yet, but he's definitely going to arrive." And it's like, for anybody buying the pay-per-view, this idea is like, we promise you, Steve Austin's coming. We know you love him. Buy the show. And speaking of buying the show, Benno, did you catch a certain line of commentary in this free-for-all that made this particular show historic to us?
Oh, maybe not. I heard the line. There was a line from Doc Hendricks where he said something about it being the most value you would get out of a pay-per-view in America in 1997. I'm not sure what that meant, but I don't know. What was the other line?
Well, I'm assuming what that meant was that's because this pay-per-view probably just followed Uncensored 1997. And Uncensored was always like WWE's worst pay-per-view of the year, wasn't it? So he was probably sticking a dig in there. No, this was the first In Your House to air in the United Kingdom.
Oh, I didn't catch that. That's interesting. I don't remember that. Was it live at the time? Did we get it live? I don't remember.
It was live. And I'll tell you what, I didn't get this one on tape, and we will certainly get into this in the next Housekeeping. I did get the Raw the next night after In Your House Revenge, which I think it's the best Raw ever, I think. And not just for this, was when they moved it to 2 hours onto Sky Sports 3 and you got the 10 minutes afterwards. The whole experience was just as good. And like, I remember they would put up, do you remember they would flash up, because Raw was still on Fridays, they'd flash up a little graphic at the start saying this Raw was recorded 24 hours after In Your House Revenge of, and they'd started putting that graphic on just in case we were all too stupid to work out why they weren't saying last night. And like they could say that now because the people in the UK had seen In Your House the night before.
That's right, because it's all part of the new deal, isn't it, with Sky, where you end up getting the UK pay-per-views, and we also get like what's it called, the Final Four thing, where they all sit down and Undertaker uses his real voice and does like the shoot promo. Oh yeah, that all fits together. That's all. Yeah, Sky getting that new deal with them. I've forgotten about that. That's very interesting.
It all starts with friggin' Flash Funk losing a squash to the Sultan. It's like, we're finally in.
But I reckon me and you in 1987 were like, I'm reading WWF magazine 4 months later. I just need to see this Sultan. I need to see what he's all about. Only for you to see him, and for him to not be about much. I mean, did you have any notes on the match from the free for all? The finish is good. Obviously, it's Flash Funk. Clearly, as I did, I'll go for a run, and you can powerbomb me, brother. It was kind of the finish here with Rikishi, who of course is a second tier, I think, Samoan when it comes to the Samoans. If you were just in theory, Michael, going to be doing like a ranking of them from a 5 to 1, I don't know whether that could be a working idea somewhere, but when we did that on Grapple, we definitely didn't consider the Sultan gimmick.
No, I was trying to think, did we get the Sultan on Final Four, or is this or is this our first look at? I think this is our first look at the Sultan, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Because we didn't, unless he was on It's Time. And so I might have already said this on a podcast, but he's not jumping out at me. I'm embarrassed to admit that I did not click it was Rikishi / Fatu for ages. I think like it was the very, very tail end of the run. And I remember he did the 360 clothesline cell that he likes. And he always does. I remember him doing that and being like, "Oh, that's Fatusa," like that. The mask and the hair thing,
the eyebrows,
with the bald head. Yeah, it did a number on me. I was fooled. I was actually fooled that this was. I wasn't sure who it was, but it didn't twig that it was Big Quiche.
There we go. Well, like part of his legacy that gets him to that point with the Samoans, but it doesn't really go anywhere, does it? Obviously, there's the Rock match there. Some will remember, and again, kind of plays into that legacy. But I just think it's interesting to see again. Flash Funk. We had the big debut. We brought out the dancers. We made it a whole big thing, and he's already. I mean, literally becomes the gimmick, doesn't it? Job squad, jobber to the stars right away, and that's all he's there to do, to put you over. I don't know. In the vein of Tony Khan, whether this is a free for all pre-show match that's going to put you in the mood to buy the pay-per-view. But it's more wrestling, and I'm sure I would have ate it up in 1987. But outside of that, there's not much else going on in this free-for-all, is there?
No, I'd have rather had one of them. You mentioned Tony Khan. I think I'd have rather had a long, extended tailgate with a panel than actually watched any kind of matches. I'd happily listen to Doc and the commentators and all the various wrestlers just chatting, just talking about everything that's suddenly going on in the WWF. Like, consider we went long in that last Housekeeping, and there's still references to things on this show that make you realize just how much they're filling the TV up with stuff. Like we didn't even talk about, it was like that Raw that just came before this pay-per-view where half of it's in South Africa. And that, I believe, is the infamous Vince McMahon slams the magazine on the desk. I want this TV was crap. I want it to be like the magazine. Yeah, like that Raw is so bad it gives the keys to Vince Russo for good.
There you go. And again, that's the tale of the two WWFs that we have at this point. But no, unfortunately, at this point, nobody had the idea to go halfway through the Sultan and Flash Funk match and just start the pay-per-view there. Maybe we might have caught a couple of extra buys, but we didn't quite have that idea as we do immediately go to in launching the pay-per-view portion of this show into the spooky voiceover, building up obviously Undertaker and Mankind, and building up Undertaker as WWF champion. It's kind of a weird one because it's like this spooky promo where it feels like the voiceover is kind of talking up the Undertaker like he's the devil risen or he's God coming down, or there's some elements of it, but it's a little bit like it might be pushing the envelope a little bit in the style of Raven and in ECW. Only for it to end, I don't know if you had this note as well, in this weird funky dance music. Like for the end of it, I didn't watch the dubbed version either. This was like the original VHS version that they've got on archive.org. I don't know what this was, but it didn't seem particularly fitting with the moodiness that came before it.
I think this is going to be a theme of this entire review. Like, and you've already mentioned it with the two covers. Like, it's a proper left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing show for the Fed. This one, isn't it? Like, they get the branding's kind of all over the shop. It's the 15th fucking show to supposedly be set up to give Vader a title match that yet again he misses. So you've kind of got the situation like with the It's Time branding where that doesn't suit anything. We've only got like there's only like the tiny house. We've still not had the full house since It's Time. We didn't get it at Final Four, and we only got the doorway here. We haven't got like the fence or the screen or anything like that. It's like it's the fact that we've still got the blue ring with the red and white ropes, even though they've moved to red and black on Raw now. It's like it's weird. There's nothing quite connects to anything else. And I would honestly include like Revenge of the Taker, scary font with random sort of 70s dubbed in club music. It's everything's an odd fit with everything else, isn't it?
So yeah, that takes us into the pay-per-view itself. Like I say, big build-up, and it takes us into our first matches. We have the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, now in WWF, as we talked about from WrestleMania 13 and the very memorable Chicago Street fight that's definitely up there in my big wrestling memories from the time. And obviously, Owen and Davey finally properly heels, I think, in this tag division, Michael, and it feels like in a lot of the build-up to this pay-per-view and a lot of winding up of the other babyface tag teams, and including LOD, when they've got spare time that doesn't involve them jumping Stone Cold Steve Austin. But more of that on the end. Is there any more background we need to know on this match with the LOD?
Well, it's typical, isn't it? Like, we've watched months and months of the Bulldog and Owen having to wrestle these makeshift heel tag teams, and they finally get two baby faces. And it's not just any baby faces, it's the baby faces. The Legion of Doom, pretty much out of the wilderness, return in March 1997, help Ahmed, as anybody would. And then immediately, our brains at the time would have been, right, well, when are they getting a tag title shot? When are Hawk and Animal getting a shot at the belts? That's immediately what you think. And then Sod's Law before we can even have a full extended program between Owen, Bulldog, and the LOD, Owen and Bulldog are kind of used as transitional guys to feed an LOD Godwin's feud that's going to turn the Godwins heel. Like, what a strange way to approach this. Like, on Raw, basically, Owen and Bulldog seemingly were trapped between baby faces, the Godwins and the LOD, but then moved out the way as the Godwins threw the slop bucket and the LOD got the slop. So that led to them four brawling and the heels thinking, oh, this is brilliant, we've gotten away with it. But it sort of, the story progressed to the point where when LOD actually fought the Godwins, Bulldog and Owen cost them the match. So that's what started as this tag title match. But already in the background, LOD have done a job to the pig farmers. Like, it's... I remember, we'll get to it as we cover it. The Hawk and Animal were brutalized by the passage of time by the end of 1997, but it turned out it was happening in the company after a month.
Yeah, it felt like, and again, they're one of those teams who it felt like, their original run in the WWF might have been 30 years ago rather than 4 years ago, that it is.
Oh,
here.
gotcha.
But, like, again, such is, like you say, the passage of time between these 2 points. But that's totally true. And it does feel like they're trying to be on the best behavior, as we'd see in later WWF runs, and making the office happy and doing stuff like say, putting the goblins over. And then you get them on a bad day where they'd be no selling for Rob Van Dam and Kane or doing something like that in like their later run. And you see a lot of that here. A lot of that bleeds into this match for me because, like, the way they set this match up, like, again, Owen and Davey, remember, there's this great team and they were a lot of fun at the time. But, like, it's in your house after in your house now where we're kind of watching it and they're just having to make, like, chicken salad out of chicken shit because I don't know if it was just me, but this felt like a match where really the structure of the match is just LOD running through Davey and Owen. And like you get some pretend selling from Hawk and some pretend selling from Animal. But really all it is just it's a temporary measure until they can start battering the lads again. And it's like Owen feels like in the early stages of the match, he takes the brunt of it. Davey fares a little better and gets a little bit of heat on LOD. But again, they end up taking back over. And anytime poor Owen gets back in, he gets clobbered again until eventually he hits the insecurity and eventually they give him a little bit of mini heat. But like this match, and I guess it's a Road Warriors thing, just the road top 70% of it right up until we get the really, really weird 2 non-finishes we get with this one.
Yeah, you mentioned the Bulldog being the one that would occasionally get a move in on them. You can almost hear the conversations, can't you? Being like, well, nobody believe if Owen got one in us. So like we'll batter the small guy, and then when he tags the muscly one, we'll give him a little bit of something. You can imagine Hawk and Animal justifying in their minds why it would be only Davey that's allowed to take control of the match while Owen just has to tag back in and get the kick in, basically. And even then, I got to be honest, like, and this, I remember I felt like this for like quite a sizable portion of Bulldog and Owen versus Furnace and LaFon until it picked up a little bit. Bulldog and Owen, it'd be unfair to say they're dogging it, but they don't do much. They kind of, their control sequence is not particularly interesting. When they're in the mood, they're quite good cheaters. They're quite good. We'll do a fake tag and we'll like pull somebody over at the corner or use a tag rope or whatever. But maybe it's just because LOD can't be asked to sell. It's kind of like Bulldog and Owen can't really be asked to cheat that much either. So it's a few stomps and a few elbows and a few kicks and a half-assed leg bar. And then as you say, it's just a tag out and LOD recover and then we reset and we go again. It's like, I don't know, like there's a point where early in the match, there's a picture-in-picture and you see Steve Austin arriving and he bumps into Pat Patterson and like at that point in the match just happens to be when, I think it's as you pointed out, when Owen hits the Enziguri and it's one of the only times that like the Bulldog and Owen get to tag over. And obviously now that'd be super polished and you never have this exciting backstage thing happening. They'd tell the wrestlers to grab a hold because we're going to show a clip from backstage. But there's no point in this match where anything that exhilarating is happening that you can't just cut to the back. You're not losing anything, are you?
Could have done it at any point, and I think that's the thing with this team. When Owen is motivated, I think the team's on fire. When they're not, Davey doesn't need an excuse, does he? Davey doesn't need an excuse to grab a headlock or grab a nerve hold. Obviously, we see a few of them through the night, and yeah, it's very much that, really. And I think part of it as well is just the fact that they're getting nothing out of the LOT team right up until, like, the false finish, obviously, where, we can't, again, there isn't really a comeback. Hawk and Animal just stop selling. They kind of smash through both Davey and Owen. Owen's the legal man. He falls to the outside, and they do. It is actually quite cool. He's like a double clothesline, and then like it's basically a power slam off the top to Davey. And it's one of those ones where it doesn't actually sound or look particularly good, but I think in its own way, that also makes it look like it hurts even more. It's like it's not a satisfying splat when Davey hits the mat, but you knew he felt it, and he didn't enjoy taking that. And yeah, that gives us our first daft finish of the night, because there's a few of them going through the night. As like obviously we get the dusty air, they pin the illegal man, we get the whole Owen. It's very weird because you get like Owen and Davey almost refusing to come back to the ring. They're kind of like, well, we got our belts back, so that's job done for us. At which point the referee seems to have the power to say and obviously we get the classic thing, match must continue, but the ref say they'll lose the tag belts if they don't come back. A power which in a couple of minutes he seems to lose, because like we go back to the match, we start the match up again, LOD batter them again, gets several visual pinfalls over them, only for Bret Hart to come in and attack the referee, and then Owen and Bulldog get disqualified, and apparently they can't lose the belts on a disqualification. Like, what is this? Like, what are we protected here? Like, what are we doing? Like, it's such a, and again, in a night of shitty finishes, such an unnecessary one and such a messy one to have here in the very first match of the night.
This is an absolute shocker. Yeah, a total shocker. You've recapped it brilliantly there. But it's the match is not that thrilling that the finish feels like it's one of them ones where that you can justify it, that it's created actual genuine heat around the heels because they've taken the opportunity. They've obviously taken in kayfabe the opportunity away from the baby faces, but it's like they're robbing the fans of the big exhilarating moment. No, because there was one glimpse of an exhilarating moment, and it was that power slam off the top for the first three. And then what's worse, I think, is that it's one thing for the people in the building that have just at this point, it's almost like when you've been in a building where this sort of thing's going on, you're like, right, well, I've been told things happening, so I've just got to go with the flow. But when you're watching at home, you want it laid out for you in a way that makes it feel satisfying. And they don't even do that. Vince McMahon has to keep saying, oh, we're still waiting for a replay. We're going to get you a replay as quick as we can. Because the reason for the finish being waved away wasn't because, am I right in saying this? It was because Bulldog wasn't the legal man. It wasn't because the LOD were the illegal men. It was because Bulldog himself wasn't legal when he got pinned. That's right. So, which is unusual. Normally, it's the tag team that are on offense that get the legal man wrong, you know? So you don't normally see it that way around. But then you're not quite sure why it's gotten started. It's got started so quickly. The referees are completely making up the rules as they go along in terms of restarting the match, as you point out, until they can't. Like when it stops again, we have a second stoppage, right? At least if there was a second stoppage, then maybe LOD could campaign for like, well, hang on then, that's 1-1. Let's have a one last sudden death. You know, like kind of akin to Shawn and Vader at SummerSlam.
Vader, yeah.
You know, like something like that where it's just like, right, well, can we go one more time and then, you know, winner stays on or whatever. And we don't. It's every kind of cheap. And ultimately Bret coming in for heat is really weird because it's unnecessary when you know what the night's going to look like and you know how Bret and Austin is kind of going to be this like show long feature of the pay-per-view anyway. I don't know if I'm like approaching this from a big picture point of view rather than just looking at the card as a whole as being a badly booked card. But I think because car crash booking has very like aggressively forced its way onto television, I think they've assumed you can force it onto pay-per-view as well, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
They've not yet realized that there's...
Feels very early Russo. Yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be a distinction between what happens on Raw and what happens... Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like literally they've gone so well, what would you do here, Vince? And it's just like, oh, well, more stuff. Let's just do stuff. Let's just do stuff for the sake of stuff. Because like you say, this would make sense if we were building to, let's say, LOD making the save at the end of the night or getting involved in something and being Austin's new backup. Not that he's a character who needs it, but that's the type of thing you would do if you were building to that. But it's just stuff for the sake of stuff, really, isn't it? And it's Bret, like I say, the hierarchy is very clear in this new version of the Hart Foundation. So Bret lowering himself to getting involved here. Again, you could imagine Bret thinking, oh, that's a good idea. We're all equals in the Hart Foundation. But the truth is, you're not really. And from that point of view, it doesn't really make sense. They're very much as henchmen already at this point. So, yeah, it's just weird. And it's just, again, it sets up the pay-per-view on a sour note. And obviously, post-match, we go to Owen and Davey, cutting a promo with Doc, who asks if they were lucky. Obviously, asks about Austin, who'd showed up during the match. I do think this is where Owen and Davey do shine, because you got it. There's a great Owen line here. It's like when he tells them that Austin turned up and they just don't believe it. And he's like, are you sure? There's a lot of bald guys walking around here. Are you sure it was him? It's fucking like the way they sell this, obviously know what's leading later, is actually really, really good. So at least we get that out of it. But outside of that, not much else going on.
No, it's funny, isn't it? Because from here, pretty much, Bulldog and Owen steal the entire pay-per-view. But it's strictly from the moment the match comes to an end. And obviously we'll get to why as we go on. I do have to point out, by the way, you reminded me of something that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention when you said how Bret came out, and Bret, he is the leader. There is a hierarchy in the Hearts. Bulldog and Owen come out to Bret's music instead of their own.
Yeah, they do.
And if you look at what they're wearing what they wore against each other in the European tournament final. Bulldog's in the long red, Owen's in like the gold version of his gear. And it's obviously like Bret's. This was the match that was kind of like tearing them apart, and now Bret's put them back together. He's because obviously when he first hugged them in that moment, you can already see you love them, but you're using them. Really, you've got this plan now, and you're going to use them rather than you didn't really want to get the family back together. You realized it was going to benefit you, and it's almost like this version of the Hart Foundation with Bret's music and like the dressing. They're doing all of his bidding like his goons across this night. It's like it's telling quite a nice story of how Bret has overnight become this like manipulative prick, and he's already kind of using them as his henchmen. It's I like that as a detail in the contrast to the type of fight the world babyface Steve Austin's becoming. They're the perfect contrast for each other still, even though now they've flipped.
Massively so, and obviously we get Jim Neidhart joining proceedings very soon. We'll be talking about him, and obviously we'll also be talking about up next. I don't know if you have the notes on this. We go backstage to is it the Superstar Line Room where we have Sonny and Brian Pillman, and they sell it like, oh, the camera's here. Oh, we better stop flirting, while they're literally hanging off each other, to the point where I'm like many things with Brian Pillman, not quite sure what's a shoot and what's a work here. I can't imagine. Skip was watching this at home, very happy with what Sonny was up to here. Neither of them look like they're in a particularly great place either, to say the least.
I don't think I'm sharing rumours behind the bike sheds to say that Sonny's seen those gravity boots. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I think. Do you remember the Raw magazine spread at the time that was like suggesting rumours that they were having like secret dates in hotels and stuff? And there was.
I remember that.
They'd made them look like paparazzi. It went nowhere on TV, but it was like a paparazzi style picture of Pillman and Sonny hanging out like in this like Miami Beach hotel or something like that. And it's quite nice. It's quite nice foreshadowing this, isn't it? Because Pillman looks, for all intents and purposes, like he's still out and hurt and just being the presenter guy. But in 24 hours, there's a massive reveal for Brian Pillman. So this was kind of a nice way to bring him back onto television as a featured person.
Massively, yeah, and it's good to see him in the mix, isn't it? Like obviously we've anytime he's been on screen, we've been loving him stealing scenes, but maybe not necessarily this one. But again, I'm sure Vince Russo love that as well. But yeah, that takes us into obviously our next big segment on the show, which is obviously our big match with The Rock, Rocky Maivia, a very young Rocky Maivia, in here against the now heel Savio Vega in the Nation of Domination, and we get Savio's entrance first, followed by during which, in fact, we get a bit of an insert, don't we, with a Rock promo. It's very fucking strange to look at, isn't it? A young Rocky Maivia, just unsure what to say next in his promo and just kind of doing that, I'm going to give it my best, guys, kind of fists up, like babyface promo. And obviously they show a bit of the footage of him being attacked by Savio on the international tour. And that's just set up here in the obviously the non-title match, Savio beating Rocky to go here. But like, he just could not look any more like a deer in the headlights here, could the young Rock very legitimately.
That's it. You mentioned young Rock, but how can he be young when there was apparently 15 years between this and the following February when he was about to break out with the Nation? Like, it is his development it's impossible, isn't it? It is impossible. And the poor bastard here as well, as you said, deer in the headlights, exactly right. Like, he looks physically enough like The Rock, but absolutely nothing else about him is. And he's obviously acting under like He's proven himself coachable, but the phrase that makes my skin crawl is how he keeps mentioning, "Yeah, that's right. I've got Lady Luck on my side," and you can hear the alliteration. It's a Vince McMahon call, that, isn't it? Don't forget to say Lady Luck. It's like when Jim Ross loved Blue Chipper. Certain little phrases that they put in The Rock's mouth. Oh my God, awful, awful, awful. But what he's doing is he's trying to show that he's coachable and he's malleable, and I'll do what you need, boss. I'm excited to be here. Big smile and all that. So they're probably realizing that we can go with him, but the material, it's so it would be so reminiscent of early babyface Roman Reigns, isn't it? So reminiscent. It's a mad that how like the cycle just repeated with another Samoan.
It's like they know something's there, they just don't know what quite it is, and then they're just literally trying to like manage it in the it's like a Premier League team, isn't it? Getting like this young star and like going, you're not a striker, mate, you're a defender. We're gonna make you a central defender instead. And it's like, clearly lean into his strengths, like go with like what works, and they do get there eventually. But like, it is exactly that square peg, round hole, and like it just gives them an uphill battle. Like even coming out, I've always had a soft spot for the old Rocky Maivia theme song, but like. The silence is deafening. Like the bulk of this match, really. Like it's another one of those matches
silence
until the nation start getting involved, and he has to kind of deal with all them, and that obviously leads to our second bullshit finish of the night. The crowd just aren't with him for anything, are they? And I think part of that as well is that Savio Vega is a heel. He's one of those wrestlers, as we talked. Like you don't really want to boo him, do you? Upstart, babyface Savio Vega. He fit that role. He was great in that role, but like him trying to sew this thing together and let Rock have his little flashes of strength and speed and to show off like his blue chipper abilities. Like, how did anybody think this was a role that was going to work for him? Because good Lord, is it quiet in that building.
This is I might have said this word already on this podcast. It's going to come up again. This is a shit show, this one, man. Like a proper hold your sign up in the night is saying like, who booked this crap match? Quint. I want to praise Farouk in a second because this is it, right? Farouk comes on commentary in a second and he almost saves the show. But yet again, it's the type of thing where sometimes in this era now, matches are happening on Raw just for somebody to be busy doing the promo work on commentary. And now it's happening on friggin' In Your House. Savio Vega, man, like we talk about doing this podcast from the bus back to the boom. We're watching him go from the boom to the bust because the man is not a heel. All of his offense is babyface stuff. And like, and I'm not saying I've seen him work as TNT in Puerto Rico, but in WWE, because they had this problem when he was Kwang, and they were like, hang on, his like scissor kicks and his fire-ups are too good. Let's turn him babyface and actually get some cheers out of it. And now he's stuck being a heel again, and he's having to do one scissor kick and then stick a chin lock on, and then sit there as the fans give them we're not exaggerating here. Nothing gets a reaction. They do stuff, and there's a point where Rock does like the float over DDT, lay it to smack it down that we all love. Like he does the little movement over.
Tried to do that in training when I was wrestling. I couldn't do it as well.
It's like the movement's so slick. Nothing. The Rock he's still doing his fancy Dan kip up. You remember when he became The Rock? It was years before he brought that back, wasn't it? Because I think he thought that was cursed. And then he does the rock bottom when it was just a transition move that gets a 2. Nothing. I'm telling you, like absolutely nothing gets a reaction. And again, it's the only beneficiary of this until the finish is Farouk, because he's on fire at the desk. And you might as well just spend your entire time listening to this quality Farouk promo on Ahmed Johnson, because shit all's going on for you to look at.
He does. He literally chews scenery, and even that almost goes wrong because like they can't get him on the headset at first, can they? They can't get that working again. 1987, the budget's just not there for like these little things that make the thing go. But you're totally right, and that like sums up the match right up until. And again, who's thinking this is a good idea? We're doing Nation of the Domination dissension, so Crush should do his hard. I used to call it hard punch when I was a kid. I didn't realize it was just the way Americans pronounce tea, like the way they pronounce water. Hits his hard punch on Rocky on the outside, and it's just like we used to do that in the playground to each other. It was probably dangerous. I think back on it, probably could have killed each other, but it was fine. It was all right. We weren't hitting each other in the air. It works, but it kills Rocky because it's like that's your finish. It's a count out, and then the whole point of it is to get Savio Vega mad at Crush because they beat Rocky up so bad, but didn't get the belt at the end of it. Just like what happened abroad. Like, who's this for? Who's this serving? Is it like the last match? Is it protecting Savio? Is it getting Crush over? Is it getting Rocky over? It absolutely isn't. Like you said, the only thing this is getting over is Farouk on commentary and the man we're about to talk about in the post match. But it does absolutely nothing for young Dwayne here.
So Farouk, I think there's a reason why he's been given he's on task here, is because I skimmed. So basically on Raw, Ahmed has challenged the Nation to a gauntlet match.
Yeah.
In which, if he beats them all in one night, one after another, the Nation will disband. But on that Raw, he does such a terrible job of outlining the stipulation that he kind of gets it wrong. So I'm pretty sure they sent Farouk out here just to reiterate. To like sort of, no, Ahmed, the actual challenge is this, and it's this, and it's this. Because the amount he goes into detail talking about what Ahmed has to do to beat them all one by one, you're completely crystal clear by the end what the actual match is going to be. But I think Ahmed just kind of fumbled it on Raw. Like, Farouk's class here, man. I've wrote down, he says, like, Ahmed, what's Ahmed doing accepting my challenge? Only an idiot would accept that challenge, but he's at least a big enough idiot to do it. It's like we're married, Vince. Death do us part. I took a kidney. He took my arm. His arm's in a sling. Next time, I might take his pancreas. Either I beat him to death or he sees the light. And when I see the light, what I mean is he comes home. So, like, at this point, he's like, only by sort of accepting Farouk's way as part of the Nation of Domination will Ahmed save himself from being killed by them. He's in his element, Farouk, now. I think he's figured out what it is to be the leader of the nation, hasn't he?
He really has, and it's funny because it's one of those gimmicks that, like, history would tell you. And obviously, we said that about the Farouk Assad gimmick. Vince giving, blue chipper himself, football player Ron Simmons, this crap gimmick. Can you believe he did it to him? I feel like this is one of the ones where we've gone back and watched and gone, actually, no, he was better for it. He was better in the Nation. His promos were better, talking about the streets that him and Armour were running in, and like you say, chewing the scenery and talking about the WWE higher ups and the corporate types. Like, it kind of felt close to the knuckle, didn't it? It felt like actually good material. Like, it is. It feels fresh. It feels unlike some of the stuff that's going on in the ring in here. Very 1997. And like you say, he's great as well at getting the story over that they're trying to get over here. And of course, in the post match, the Nation do end up beating up, and we have a couple of these in the night, beating up Rocky post match to kind of make the point that obviously he really is a dweeb and he really is absolutely going nowhere. Only for Ahmed to make the big save here in a velvet tracksuit with a 2x4 in his hand. And I have to ask you, before we even get to him calling them, what do they call him? An illegal, an immigrant, and a convict Farouk and the lads. He calls Farouk something as well that I can't repeat. And he does reiterate here, like you said, somebody's got in his ear. It's a 3-on-1 match you need to say, Ahmed. Just get those words out. He spits those words out perfectly as well. But never mind the promo, Michael. The second he runs out here, the second he saves Dwayne, I'm just looking at him going, are we certain that Steve's the guy? Are we certain that it should be Steve here in 1997? And really looking at him, are we saying it should be The Rock in 1998 and 1999? Because for me, Ahmed still got it here.
I tell you what, the way that Farouk talks and the reaction that Ahmed gets, it's astonishing that The Rock would get overcut in promos, isn't it? Because he is dead meat between these two. Like, the fans go nuts for Ahmed coming out. They buy into Farouk as the heel. I think you're bang right. Farouk has read the room. He's taken the temperature of what the WWF has become and has thought, right, how do I actually make this Nation make sense? With, like, already by late 96, the Nation runs the risk of becoming like a cartoonish thing. So he's like, no. Like, I'm going to, like, let's see how far I can push this and until Vince cuts me off. So he goes way over probably what the original line for the Nation of Domination was and just gets that over. And as a result, he kind of drags Ahmed into this pre-Attitude Era as well, doesn't he? Ahmed is he's always been a goodie. Like, Your Going Down is always like rooted in the sort of traditional early 90s babyface stuff. But Ahmed's a badass. Like, Ahmed has kind of leveled up with Farouk, and the Chicago Street Fight at WrestleMania shone a different light on what they were prepared to do to each other and stuff. And it's just, I love this feud so much. I absolutely love this feud. Like, it's awesome. We know what's coming.
It's also fun to say as well, isn't it? But like, at least maybe we're dating the podcast a little bit, but to see like, was it last week where Ahmed and Farouk like took a picture together and and like Ron Simmons said something along the lines of, we didn't always get on, but we're grown men now and we can see eye to eye. I almost don't want to see that. I wanted to see these two hate each other until death. It kind of worked for me as a both kayfabe and non-kayfabe situation.
Well, just because that line where he's like saying, I'll take this body part, he'll take that one, because it was actually happening. Because like Ahmed was so clumsy and Farouk was so jacked, they were constantly tearing muscles and injuring organs. It was like, it feels authentic, doesn't it? It feels like, Christ, these have been at war with each other. It's good stuff.
And it should be said as well.
The Rock and Savio is not good. Like, we cannot get away from this. This set up a hot angle. This was another disaster of a match, really. Two for two on absolute stinkers.
Ridiculous. But I guess the one positive you can say for Rock is, like, for as much as we're talking up Ron Simmons there, we're talking up like the Farouk character. By the time Rock does turn on him, by the time that goes, like, how many times has he lapped him? Like, how far ahead does that version of The Rock feel to that version of Ron Simmons compared to what we've got here? So at least things do eventually get better. But yeah, a complete disaster from a booking point of view. But yeah, it's kind of in keeping with how this feud has gone with Farouk and Ahmed in the many cancelled matches. But we'll continue to track that as it goes. Rocky still is our Intercontinental champion, and yeah, we go from there to not just the. They've got one little online setup backstage. It is 1997, so we also need, is it the AOL booth where we have Ken Shamrock sat? Vince says he's about to challenge Mike Tyson. I think I heard Vince McMahon say, yeah. Okay, fair enough. That's a very, again, early Attitude Era stuff. Could have been something in that as well. But yeah, any notes on that before we go to Doc backstage with Sable and Mark Mero for the big angle of this part of the show?
Just the idea that I still remember I don't know how you were on this one. And we can go deeper on him at the next In Your House review. I didn't know what to make of Ken Shamrock until he finally put the tights on. Like, I didn't know, because he was such a...
what is he? Who is he?
Considering how jacked he was, he did a brilliant job of putting himself into the background at WrestleMania, didn't he, between Bret and Steve? So, like, it's only when he puts the trunks on for the first time they're like, right, okay, like a guy who can wrestle, but he's got the switch in the back of his head that turns him into a trained killer. Like, they'd only just started doing the do you remember they had like that weird like the impromptu no holds barred match on Raw where he kind of he kind of like
Vince's version of MMA.
Yeah, like he brutalized. I think this is the sort of shite trivia I remember. I think it's the one edition of Raw ever when they're still experimenting with the look of it, and because the Raw's War logo is red, black, red. It's the one ever Fed show where the ropes are top rope red, middle rope black, bottom rope red. And it was like, what is this? And Shamrock beats the shit out of some poor kid in like something they call like a no holds barred exhibition. And you're like, okay, I get it. And then all of a sudden he's like a nice guy pressing keys like Shawn Michaels on the one laptop in the building. I'm like, what? Who is he? What's the deal with Ken Shamrock? He kind of looks like an American stand-up of that era, doesn't he, as well? You know, the ones that would like pace the stage and shout. He's got the very slick hair and he's not... He's not what he would become at this moment, is he?
Yeah, he's literally like a guest star, isn't he? He's a bloke you could absolutely believe. Oh, he's got no real interest in wrestling. He came to referee that one match, and we're never going to see him again. You're absolutely right. It's actually one of the better versions of that, isn't it? Of guys who kind of come in from the outside and slowly they bleed them into the roster and slowly they make them actual wrestlers. Because it was always a shock to me, because obviously during this period, and I don't know if you were the same, this is how I found out even what UFC was, like from hearing them mention it on WWF TV and then noticing in our local video shop, as well as early 90s WCW videos. We also had like the first few UFCs. So going back and watching, like Ken Shamrock's, he's in like the first few, isn't he, with Royce Gracie and all of those big early fights, and kind of almost half getting into MMA through that. But even through all that, they did a great job through the way they present him on TV, that you wouldn't actually believe he was a trained wrestler. And like, I remember the day where I think it was Bravo used to show like old, like sometimes they'd show like old 80s, early 90s wrestling, and it was maybe it was UWF stuff, and it was Ken Shamrock, and he was under a different name and he was wrestling. I was like, fuck, he wrestled before he went to the WWF. It was mad, wasn't it? He completely worked me though. I honestly believed he was this bloke stepping in off the street, off these street fights, these cage fights, and was just learning how to wrestle on the job.
They branded it as did they brand it as Bushido? Bushido, yeah.
And he was
called Vince?
I think so. Shamrock, maybe Vince
Torelli or something like that. I can't like. I've got like God, yeah, Bushido and Bravo, Christ. Aye. There was nothing like finding wrestling on the telly when you didn't know that there was wrestling. There was nothing in the world like finding more wrestling, was there?
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't believe your eyes.
Or discovering the Flash Funk used to be Too Cold Scorpio. That was another big one for me. But yeah, like I say, they literally, you're right. There's so many other people who'd be in that WrestleMania position with Bret and Steve in such a lauded match. You don't really talk about Ken Shamrock, do you, when you talk about that match? You don't talk, maybe when it comes to the finish and the post-match, but outside of that, he doesn't dominate it in the way somebody else in that position might have. But yeah, he's here. Apparently, he's going to be fighting Mike Tyson. Nothing comes of that, but obviously more on that when we get into 1998. And that does take us, Michael, into the big angle of the night, and the one that, like you say, I've also rewound a few times while I've been watching this one back. We have Doc Hendricks with a very boring interview with Sable and Mark Mero, and I was literally watching it going, what is going on here? They're asking Sable about being Miss Slammy. They're asking Mo, the world has been wondering, Mark, how's the knee? It's like, the world has definitely not been wondering how is Mark's knee. Then, like, it's almost like they run out of material. So Doc Hendricks starts going, so this is the arena where you won those Golden Gloves, isn't it, Mark? And I'm like, this isn't Marvelous Mark Mero here. What are we doing? Why are you bringing this up? And I literally got worked into it, only to, like, you hear the sound of the background, and you go to the angle behind the angle that has literally taken place here, and the reason. We used to do these things in 1987. There was a reason for the camera to be there, and it all felt very plausible, but maybe the giveaway should have been this nothing happening Sable and Mark Mero promo, which just felt like designed to make you hate them even more.
Maybe the giveaway in hindsight should have been that they decided to interview Mark Mero and Sable right outside the men's box. It's not exactly the most glamorous set, is it? Like, because they need it to be, as you'll mention in a second, there's a reason why they're there. But like, I love that they've just thought, right, you're right. It's good that they thought, why are we outside the shitters at the Rochester War Memorial? It's like, well, I suppose we could have Mero and Sable just stood outside talking about Mero seeing some old boxing mates the night before. It's sad this, like we've talked about this, the Attitude Era,
started as truthers.
Like the pre-Attitude Era, this era we're in now, it doesn't wait for anybody, does it? If you fall off that train, you cannot get back on. It is relentless. The Wild Man is this is our first In Your House cycle without him. He got injured at the Raw after the last one we covered. Of course. And it already feels like he's dead and buried and finished. Like he feels like, well, sorry, Mark, you belong to 1996. We've no place for you anymore. It is relentless, this period.
The WWF is going to go wild when he comes back from this knee injury. It's like, no, they're not, mate. I think we've got him past you here. But as you rightly said, it is all it's a shadow boxing as well. Oh, it's awful stuff, but it is rightly set up again. The tale of two halves here for this brilliant angle. One of the many brilliant angles that obviously happens with these key characters, as you rightly say. There is a commotion going on in the toilets. Doc Hendricks is doing the worst possible job of being roving reporter. I think something's happening. I don't understand what's happening. And there's a Dave Hebner that comes running out to tell him that it's Steve Austin who's been attacked, only for Davey and Owen to come out of the toilets looking the way the two of them look at the camera with this startled, oh shit, they're onto us, we better lam it, and then they run away. It's just like, you know what, I'll forgive that match earlier on, the performance from these two in the 5 seconds that on camera here made up for everything we saw earlier on the night.
Piss funny, man. Bulldog. It was the role the Bulldog was born to play, which is wide-eyed and confused, staring at a camera. There's nothing in the world he's better at than looking shocked that a camera's on his face. It's weird to say that about a pro wrestler, but even when he was cutting a promo with Jim Cornette, and Cornette's gone 10 minutes just to say, "Tell him, Davey," he kind of goes yeah, Bret, in your house. He's brilliant. He's brilliant at being shocked by a camera, so he's perfect for this. And the weapons, so they've obviously beat him up with these pipes or something. And the way they've bent the pipe comedically, you'd think it was the perfect outline of Austin's bald head, and they've just smashed him, like a cartoon would, when it would hit Desperate Dan in the Dandy or something, and it would bend perfectly around Austin's head. They've got these cartoonishly bent, but what have they done to Austin with these pipes? It's brilliant, man. It's so funny. They nail it. They nail this. It's really, really good stuff, because it's going to tell a serious injury angle story, but you're never really in doubt that Austin's going to make the match. So if by the time we get to the point where years later, when they've got ambulances turn up in the building to carry people away, we've reached a point where you're supposed to take it seriously. You're not really supposed to take this seriously, are you? Steve Austin's making it to the ring.
You want like they are goons that are there.
Yeah.
Purely so that Austin can smash through them when he comes back. A bit like LOD smash through them early in the night, but no, they're perfect for that role, aren't they? It's like, it's ideal. And yeah, you're right. You want at least that belief that, well, Austin's clearly going to come back and he's going to batter them. And it keeps you going to the end of the show, doesn't it? And that would obviously be the magic formula for some of the Raws in 1997 that I'm very excited to get into with you as well. But very memorable and fucking great stuff from the lads here. But unfortunately, again, they give us one, they take one away. We then go to our next match, Michael, as we have, as was spoiled on the VHS cover, the battle of Jesse James and Honky Tonk Man's new charge, the Rockabilly. This obviously is right in the middle of Baby Tonight roadie, as he's obviously reclaimed the song of we've talked about on previous housekeepings. The poor bloke. We've got Honky Tonk Man, and obviously they've done the angle in the leading up to this where he tried to get Jesse James to be his new charge. He didn't go for it. Tried to get Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn bumped him. I remember watching that one at the time, only for it to turn out that after all, it was Billy Gunn who was going to be in Honky Tonk Man's corner. And like, even if you think that's a bad idea in principle, even if you're a truther like me who still remembers the WWF magazine at the time with the silhouette of Disco Inferno, Vince Russo's good mate Glenn, that he very clearly put in there in the hope that WWF were going to come calling and sign him. And whatever you believe about that falling through, like, it's not like they really give even this half a chance, do they? Like they tease a little bit that is Honky Tonk Man going to wrestle for himself? Is he going to be the one taking on Jesse James? Only for him to get on the microphone. And honestly, in about as enthused as I sound now, he basically just goes, yeah, he used to be Billy Gunn, but now he's Rockabilly. Come on out here, Rockabilly. And then he comes out and that's the big intro. Just like, like this is so 1996 in 1997, as we keep saying with these angles.
I've got so many like words in my notes here that are just in capitals because I'm angry typing them. I've got that quote you just gave. He used to be Billy Gunn, now he's Rockabilly. I've got no pop in capitals immediately afterwards because this gets nothing. This gets absolutely nothing. The match gets nothing. I've got that in capitals about 3 times. I've got
that too. No heat at all. Capital letters.
I've wrote, what the fuck is this shit? Swear words in capitals, right? And then I hadn't realised that as soon as Honky came out, before he's even spoken, I'm just so angry to see him, like I was when we covered Final Four.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I've cut again, all caps. What the fuck is this geek doing back here? 2 quick dates for you, Benno. 2 quick dates on the Honky Tonk Man before I give you the hospital pass of even having to cover the details of this match, right? This is April 1997, right? So it's 10 years after he defeated Ricky Steamboat to become the greatest intercontinental champion of all time, right? That's bad enough. Watch how many times I have to flash these fingers, Benno. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 25 years before they gave Gunther the record and took it off the fucking Honky Tonk Man. He's one of the worst ever. Bottom 5 dead or alive pro wrestlers ever. And he held on to that record for 35 years. And this was only 10 years after it happened. You would think that they had dusted off Lou Thez himself and put him in an Elvis jumpsuit. How out of time this man was. What?
Even at his peak, though, an Elvis gimmick was out of its time, wasn't it? It was the 80s. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
There is absolutely no justifiable reason to have the Honky Tonk Man, Elvis Wayne Ferris, on the same card as Stone Cold Steve Austin, unless the latter is hitting the former with a Stone Cold Stunner so we can laugh at him. It is like, and he buries Billy Gunn and he stands on the apron and the commentators are burying Billy Gunn for being shit at doing Honky's gimmick. And Honky's looking angry stood at ringside. This is a fucking nightmare.
They bury everyone because, like, this is, I mean, there's people I'm sure who lived through it know, but even those who didn't, this is the New Age Outlaws origin story. Like, and God, you know, I don't have great things to say about Brian James, the Road Dogg. Don't have much good to say about Billy Gunn, but I will always, even if I don't like them, I think I'm consistent with this on Grapple. I will give wrestlers credit who get themselves over, and they are at the top tier of wrestlers who shouldn't have, but did, got themselves over. And even in, like, you know, a peak period like 1998, 1999, where everybody ends up over, they were a level of over above like everyone else and above, most everyone else, obviously outside of the big names that like you wouldn't have expected from the origins this comes from. Because you're absolutely right. Like, never mind the fact that Honky Tonk Man is involved, which absolutely ridiculous. Like, whose idea? He's the worst type of like veteran guy as well. Because like you rightly say, he's there about getting himself over, isn't he? He would never. He's not the veteran who's going to go, okay, well, how can I get this young guy over? That clearly is not his attitude. But I don't think it's the company's attitude here, because obviously burying like Billy Gunn for being there and being with Honky Tonk Man. But I don't know if you caught it. There's a point where Honky Tonk Man just says right to Road Dogg. It's the best thing he does all match. He just shouts at him. He goes, "You're a goof," and Vince goes, "That might be true, but right now he's on top." And I was like, don't say that's true. He's the babyface. You don't call him a goof. Like, clearly, like whoever's idea this was backstage, like, it's no wonder that Vince Russo ended up with more power by the end of 1997, because this stuff should not have been getting on television.
I think this is I was writing this at the time, and I don't know, maybe I'm being too harsh on it. As I was watching it, I was thinking, this is the worst thing we've covered, right? Because, 1995 gets the pelt as it gets. 1996 is extremely sort of uneven in what works and what doesn't work. And like a big thing that leaps out is something like Ultimate Warrior with Goldust, because they're blatantly selling you a match that they can't deliver, and the things they come up with to try and fill the time, it doesn't justify itself ultimately. But I think this is the worst thing we've ever covered, right? Because taking a gamble on a shitty gimmick in 1995 is kind of just what you did in 1995. Like, the rule book hadn't been torn up yet. WCW were only running with a Dungeon of Doom. Like, that was just what you did. Even if the Click were trying to tell you, even if the Click were trying to tell you that it should be done different, even if Bret was trying to take it seriously, fundamentally, you could do that in 1995, and the industry was so far behind ECW that you were going to get shitty monsters or whatever. In 1996, like, you were starting to see characters almost grow beyond terrible personas. So even when somebody was in a terrible gimmick, they were only really in it to be a jobber. TL Hopper was never going to win a world title. Friggin' #not my baby tonight. Brian James, like Jesse James, was there to do jobs, not to win titles. So you can you can kind of justify it. This is supposed to be a push. It's supposed to be a repackaging. And not only does the fucker lose the actual match, then in the getting your heat back bit, neither of them get any heat. And then the Road Dogg runs away like a coward. Every bit of this is wrong-brained. Every bit of it is upside down. It's like they've been handed the entire. I cannot believe that this made it onto a pay-per-view. It's a low key. I think it's the worst thing we've covered, and like it's one of them things that like when it gets the wrestle crap treatment, the reason people talk about it is exactly your point. It's like, look, from this they became the New Age Outlaws, and it's like, from this everybody should have been sacked. Never mind became like writers, agents, bookers, wrestlers, Honky Tonk Man forever. Like, this is unacceptable for the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment, quite honestly.
It's one of those Danielson things, isn't it? Where like they'd want to tell you, well, actually, it was actually a good thing that we did this because it created magic in New Age Outlaws. Like, no, those two lads created magic. More to the point, Road Dogg did. Billy Gunn was also there. It's pretty much the story of that team. Like, they took that blank slate, didn't they? And they took those, those no music having like entrances and turned it into something and got themselves over, which again, they deserve the plaudits for. That is the only thing that kind of saves this and makes it, as you say, worth talking about. But like the point they're starting from, they shouldn't have been starting from there in the first place. And it really is an unbelievable indictment of the time. Like you say, can't get lost in the fact that like, Rockabilly is supposed to be this thing that they're getting over and they can't even give them the win. It's just, it's shit in it. It's just shit. Never written about it. Dog shit.
Mind-blowingly bad. Like, I know when people say things, I really hate that line about like, and it's from young people because they just don't know better. But like young people on social media were like, if Twitter was around for this, they'd savage it. And they don't know that like arseholes like us were sat on forums complaining that's it. Like it was on a different app or whatever. But like, this is a good example of the sort of thing that like, can you imagine this match being live tweeted and then people gifting the botches and people gifting like, this would go down in infamy, wouldn't it? Like if this happened. This will be shared and shared and shared again. An all-time worst moment of the year, the whole thing. There's a 52-week churn and so much gets lost to content. We would be talking about this in like end-of-year lists as an all-time worst thing. Like think of Billy Gunn versus Jay White from Dynamite and how it sticks out as this monument of something terrible. Like
In 2023 was that? Like, that might be worse actually than this. That might be worse.
and Billy Gunn's still at it, by the way. It's the same fucking wrestler. But like,
no, he's played by Jerry Lynn now. The actor's been recast.
But just like when a match is that terrible and that much of a like an almost so bad it's funny disaster happening on television, we then all remember it and we have this shared moment where we all use it as as I've just done, as like a reference point. This deserves to be like a reference point of something that is rock bottom worst, I think.
If WCW won the war, and I wish they did, there's an alternate reality out there where they do. This is on the Death of WWF DVD, isn't it? This is one of the things they point to and go, look what these fuckers did. But because it's the WWF, these types of things don't get the hammer that they deserve and should rightly get. So, yeah, absolutely awful stuff. And it gets worse before it gets better with this story as well. But how much we'll cover it, we'll see as we go. But rotten stuff, and not a great pay-per-view so far. We go backstage. We have Doc Hendricks doing an advert for the Undertaker's door hanger. Don't know if you ever wanted an Undertaker door hanger in your life, which does segue us into a very good segment with Steve Austin, interviewed by Kevin Kelly here, saying there ain't no way he's missing the match against Bret Hart, and obviously this is where Gorilla Monsoon gets involved, and again, tale of two feds. I feel like whether this is a kayfabe or non-kayfabe decision or not, moves it to the main event, where, if we're all honest, it rightfully belongs. But good bit of storytelling to get us there.
I loved it's so funny, we talked about this on Housekeeping. It's such a line in the sand when Jerry Lawler all of a sudden sides with Bret Hart. And Steve Austin, when he's just shouting at the world, he's cutting a promo on Fresh Air, and he's still doing it better than 99% of every wrestler ever. And he's like, I don't care, like nobody can whip my ass. I'll even go to Canada and beat up Bret Hart's old fat father Stu. And then like they come back, I love that line. they go to Bret next, and I'll let you recap what Bret says in response. But then when they go back to the ringside and setting up the next match, and like Lawler's appalled that Steve Austin has been so disrespectful to Stu Hart. And it's like, Jerry Lawler, you rat bastard. Like this is the man that said he should put his teeth in backwards and eat himself to death. How could Steve Austin say that about the great Stu Hart? I was like, that's fucking brilliant stuff.
Oh, he is literally he's the cherry on top of this heel turn, isn't he? That Lawler is now on side with the lads. It's fucking fantastic stuff. I mean, I was going to get into what Bret said. Before we do, Michael, I want to know who he said it to. Who the fuck is Lance? Like, who is this? Lance Wright was his name? Like, who is this bloke who appears out of nowhere? I've got to know. So,
do you remember, obviously Lance Wright for a hot second was in WWF as this interviewer, right? I think he might have been an ex-TV star. I'll Google it while long because there's another wrestling-related factoid. He was in ECW as Mr. Wright, playing a Mr. McMahon.
That's him. Yeah.
Like sort of almost like a Mr. McMahon knockoff. He was somewhere between. He was like a halfway house between Vince McMahon and Jason, the sexiest man on earth. And he would wear a suit back when they would have like WWF overlap people. I think they got him. I don't know. I'm going to check if it's 90210. But I think they might have got him from some TV show where he'd had a bit of it, because he's got those kind of looks, hasn't he? But I don't know. It was like, I don't know if he just like done a bit of TV and then gotten himself into wrestling. But yeah, he was Mr. Wright in like Lance Wright in ECW, and he had this cup of coffee in WWE.
It's mad that they used that to like do like a WWF invasion in ECW. I had completely blank. So you said the full name, Lance Wright. Look, that's that guy, isn't it? It's him. Yeah. It's bizarre though. Like there's a few of these where we get some weird trials during this in your house period. I don't think he made that a regular pay-per-view, but wild to you would see
him hanging out with when the invasion, it's kind of it was less of an invasion really. It was just every now and then WWF would lend talent to ECW. So Doug Furness and Brackus and guys like that would just wrestle in the arena, and Lance Wright would be with them. And it was this idea that like this was a team WWF, but really you're like, well, hang on. I like the WWF, and I don't mind that we've sent those ones down to fight the ECW guys. It's not like they've sent Austin and Rock. It's like you can have Brackus and Furness.
Oh, to me, that's the history repeating WWE and TNA now. I feel like they've got a very similar relationship at this point. But he's just a wallflower, and he's just there for for the lads to bounce stuff off. Like, again, I regret saying anything bad about Davey and Owen early in the night, because like their story here that like, oh no, Austin attacked us. That's what happened. We were defending ourselves. Like, we've heard it, mate. We saw you running out with, like you said, the Steve's head shaped weapon as they came out the dressing room. It's brilliant stuff, and I love. There's a line from Bret here, isn't it? The bottom line is now, who's crying now? It's like, oh, it's so good. Like, you can just feel the obvious chemistry out of these three, and it's just perfect cherry on top for this story that's ongoing through the night.
Bret's brilliant, man. He's been waiting to fire like the crybaby line back at Steve Austin, and it's like the joy is just etched across his face with a little smirk when he does it. And Owen and Davey's story being about how they were celebrating in the toilets, like that's their alibi. We were just celebrating our win over LOD with in the toilets, and then it was,
which is a question in the 90s. It's not place not that other place to celebrate in 1997. You know, maybe not arena toilets, but you know.
It's class, man. Yeah, this is good stuff. It's other than a little bit of what we're about to get to, this angle advancement is the only reason to have watched the last hour and a bit of WWF television, isn't it? Christ almighty.
Massively so. But that obviously gives us reason for that to go on last year. And obviously before that, we do have the small matter of the still WWF World Heavyweight Champion, the Undertaker versus Mankind, and we get a bit of it's like a horror movie VT, isn't it, here to set things up, which is very well done. Obviously, the background here with Undertaker with he's taped his eye up, but it's maybe not selling it as much as he'd sold other injuries to his face in the past. But obviously, I'll let you fill in some background here in the story that led us here. But it's no surprise, again, over on Grapple, we just talked about Mick Foley in 1999, and we often bring up on here, don't we, when we do eventually get there. But in 1998, Austin needs someone to work with. Who'd you go to? You go to Foley. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Undertaker's the world champion now. Who's he going to work with? Mankind, and it's proper old school wrestling booking as well, isn't it? That clearly Mankind's got wins over him, and clearly Mankind's a credible challenger, and it's a great way to kind of get him set off and off to the races. But yeah, obviously there's some foreshadowing here for what's going to come later in the year as well with the use of fire here. But I do love Foley as Taker's opponent here.
Yeah, the booking is so fantastic. It did lead me to forget that they were once again going to go with Vader, and they'd finally get to him. By the way, we're only a couple of shows away from that.
It does happen, doesn't it? Yeah.
He picked up an injury, and then B, he'd got himself in trouble in Q8 with the news broadcaster.
Oh yeah, with the shaking the news broadcaster.
Yeah. So that had to go on ice yet again. Revenge of the Vader is going to be about a year in the making when we finally get there. But for Revenge of the Taker, Foley was such a perfect slot in the video package. I just want to isolate it for praise, to be honest, because we've we're kind of recapped in Housekeeping everything that's ever happened with the Undertaker and Mankind, but then leading the fire is this one last escalation that they'd never explored between the two of them. So it makes sense as this kind of last desperate act of Mankind to get the title back off the Undertaker when he was setting things up with Paul Bearer. But what I loved about this video package was how it's not just about the Undertaker and Kane. It's about the Undertaker and Mankind. It's about how Freudian slip, because he's on the way, whether we want him to be or not. It's basically sort of illustrating how Undertaker and Mankind are different to everybody else on the roster. You see a bunch of wrestlers looking wide-eyed and afraid, and it's edited with footage and noises that are going voices speaking backwards and noises going in all different directions, and it's trying to illustrate that the only two people that can cope when the world goes so crazy are the Undertaker and Mankind, because they're so otherworldly that they're unaffected by the world going mad. The editing style is makes the company look like a really insane place. It's really well made. It shows highlights of all the Undertaker and Mankind matches from 1996. And it shows you, like you say, how many wins Mankind got over the Undertaker and how Undertaker could never get true revenge, obviously. So you've got the title of this pay-per-view taken care of. But then I think it's even, I think it's Todd on the voiceover, isn't it? He says, they got so sick with each other, it just became a game of can you top this? And it reduces all those sick bumps they took against each other to just being a game about who could hurt each other more, to the point that by the time Mankind uses the fire, he's done it to win the game. He's like, the one, I buried you. You know, I got your manager to turn against you. We fought in a boiler room. You threw my mate into a fountain outside an arena. You got me straitjacketed. We tried to half kill each other. Paul Bearer was trapped in a cage, but we could never top it. And now I've set you on fire. You can't top that, dead man. And obviously now Undertaker's got to take his revenge and beat him once and for all with a title on the line. Fabulously well built. And just to sort of get us into the match, the fact that the Undertaker, just like he'd do back in 1996, even though it's his first pay-per-view as the world champion, ditches the jacket on the way to the entrance. And it's the first time we see him in this, like, he's in this 1998 Attitude Era gear, but like here he is wearing it in 1997 as the World Wrestling Federation champion, as he's whole again, the Undertaker, isn't he? He went through this like big transition stage from the purple to the leather because Mankind had changed him and Mankind had forced him to rethink who he was, but he did it. He rethought who he was. He got the belt back, and he's not going to be fucked around with by Mankind anymore. And that becomes they batter each other in this match, and it's kind of the forgotten Undertaker Mankind match, but it keeps going back to this theme of like Undertaker's the baby face. But he's learned now. He's like, I will get as violent as it takes to stop this man at all costs. He can't hurt him anymore. He's cracked all the codes, and Mankind, like, if he has to kill him, he'll do it. But Mankind will die tonight if it's necessary.
That's why you can't underestimate how important Foley and the Mankind character is into almost making even me and you fans of the Undertaker during this period and bringing this side of him out of it. Because, like, I joked about it before, but, like, obviously we saw it in 1995 when the Undertaker was taken out. He comes back with a spooky mask. We're not in that era anymore. He's human, pretty much, at this point, this version of the Undertaker. And what would a human do? A human would be taped up, and he comes out taped up like an actually wounded human, and he's got emotion like a wounded human. And, like, everything about it, you absolutely nailed it there. The violence that's escalated here, that's led us to this point, bleeds into the match perfectly. It's earned because, fuck me, they kill each other in this one. Like, literally from the start, like, Foley's immediately going for the eye. They do, like, a very, very, like, alien near fall with an earn shot, which is, like, the most shoot earn shot I've ever seen. But, like, some of the chair shots in this, like, there's a point where Undertaker basically does a Van Daminator, doesn't he, with the steps in there? Who saw him doing that? That's another thing, obviously, Foley brings out of him. Like, obviously, there's the big Foley bump we're going to build to here that's obviously been replayed a million times. That's brilliant. But, like, there's just something about that. And, like, the two characters and what the chemistry they had, both as men and as characters here, that brings out that escalated violence that just works so well. And we've loved everything pretty much, haven't we, that Mankind and Undertaker have done together. And, like, this is one that I said that last time on Housekeeping, I wasn't certain that I'd seen this show before. This match I'd seen before. Obviously, once you see the bump that's coming, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. But like you say, it's the forgotten one because it's probably one of the, with the other matches, you talk about like the Buried Alive match, or you talk about, like, obviously, the going backstage and, the stuff with Paul Bearer and all of that stuff, like the Boiler Room Brawl, all of it. It's all very gimmicky and it's all, they make it work for themselves. This is the one for me that's the most just purely physical and purely brutal. And it's the most pure match despite the violence that you get out of these two. I absolutely love this thing.
I honestly, this felt like a gift, didn't it? Because you just thought you were never going to get red hot Undertaker Mankind ever again. And then you get this as this, like, last little bonus ball. It's kind of the last bonus ball of, like, brown heel Mankind.
It's like an epilogue, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. We've not really got long to go. And this match would almost be, it's the fitting way. It's kind of the perfect way to write off this era of Mankind, isn't it? Before we get onto the Jim Ross interviews and everything that's going to spin off for that, because the Undertaker was his legacy rival. Fuck me, man! Like the double choke slam into the guardrail in the first 2 minutes, like, and then before Mankind can even collect himself, Taker launches him like all the way across the length of the ring over the top of the other guardrail, and none of the fans see this coming. Why would they imagine that Mick Foley's about to do a flip bump over this guardrail, and suddenly the two of them are fighting in the crowd? But to your point, it's nothing to do with, like, the little bit of the hokey thing of, like, oh, they're fighting down towards the grave, or they're fighting their way in through the boiler room. They're just fighting, simple as. The Undertaker, again, to your point about him being human, he keeps rolling in and out to break the count. That's the one flaw in this match, as Vince McMahon points out in commentary. He's like, how has this not been a DQ? And they should have made this an ODQ match, obviously, because there were obviously The ref was just told, ignore it. Obviously, Taker or Foley's giving them the eyes of, fuck you, basically, don't call it DQ. we're using everything. There is, I think this might be the one you're talking about. There's like a steel chair shot right to the head. The chair bends through and you can see the blood on it because it's gone so hard against his head. Like, absolutely gross. Foley's, like, the two back-to-back gorgeous pull-in pile drivers that just spike the Undertaker's head that only get 2 counts. And it's like, the whole story is designed to tell you, like, there was once upon a time in 1996 where the Undertaker could not keep Mankind down and he didn't really know what to do with it. And now the game has changed and Mankind can't keep the Undertaker down. There's never been a story with the Undertaker where the psychology is, they're like, that was the thing, wasn't it? The villains were always idiots. They were always like, we've got the Undertaker this time. And then sure enough, he sits up and he wins and he saves the day. And none of them would ever learn the lessons. Mankind never had to learn those lessons because he just kept winning. He just kept beating the Undertaker and beating the Undertaker down. And he took the urn and he took everything from him. But now for the first time, Mankind has become that villain, but it's logical because he's the one guy that used to put him down. And now he's doing his pulling pile drivers and he's hitting his weapons and he's hitting his elbows from the aprons. And he's like, great, I'm going to beat the Undertaker and become WWF. He's kicked out. You what? Like, that's the first time Mankind's been allowed to be that kind of heel. And Taker's just not having it anymore. And when Taker kicks out now and when he fires back, he's not having to do the labored delay, the fucking... the old school, because Mankind knows it's coming, exactly, and he lets go of the hand. So Undertaker does a self assessed springboard leaping clothesline. It's fucking brilliant. That's like,
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Of course, Mankind would know to pull the hand away, but he wouldn't be ready for the Undertaker to do a springboard clothesline, and that's how the psychology is shifted between the two of them. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's earned, isn't it? That's exactly where I was going. Like for that character to know the Undertaker well enough to do it, but the Undertaker to be, like I say, he's a human being now who does he's taking advantage of his like physical prowess and the things that he can do in the ring. He wasn't doing this in 1993, but he can do it here and he can show it off. And it's a perfect logical way to get to a spot like that. It's not surplus. It fits perfectly in the story they're telling here. And it's like, say that the way the violence escalates is brilliant. The way they fucking take each other out and they do lay it in here is brilliant. And for me, it all just builds to like the big spot of the match, which is Undertaker hitting that guy with the steps. And everyone, I reckon most people listening to this have seen this clip, but wouldn't know where it was from. But it's the famous one where Foley goes through the table and goes head first through it. I have never seen a more perfect bump than him literally going, he goes through the table. He literally, it's literally like a comedy sketch, isn't it? It's like watching like Tom and Jerry or something like that, or like say Roadrunner, like we were talking about before. It's a Wile E. Coyote bump because he literally creates like a perfect Mick Foley-sized hole in the table, and like his legs are dangling out, aren't they? And it's like he's in there from like the waist down. It's incredible. And it's funny, but also not light enough that it takes away from the violence of it. It's such a memorable, great bump that like, I think he said it in his book, didn't he? He could have tried 30 more times and he wouldn't have landed as perfectly as he does it. It's just chef's kiss on like an already great, creative, violent match.
It's magic. It is absolutely magic. There's I think it's just before that, isn't it? Because that leads pretty much directly to the finish. Taker can roll him back in, and it's a choke slam and a tombstone, and that's it, isn't it? But there's a bit before that, isn't it? They go to the like obviously Mankind at that point had done it with Shawn, and that's how we'd lost his ear in Germany with the head in the ropes spot. But the Undertaker now is just unrelenting, hits him with the punches, and then pulls Mankind's mask off as Mick sort of like slumps to the floor. And again, it's a bit of foreshadowing because it's like it's the human face of Mick Foley underneath the mask for the first time, and you're right. So now Undertaker hasn't just figured out how to beat Mankind; he's figured out how to beat the human being that Mankind is underneath the mask. Like there's a real artfulness to this that isn't just about the violence. The violence is pretty meaningful. And what's great is that no matter what the agents have come up with, maybe this is like a Pat Patterson masterpiece for all we know. What you do know is that Mick Foley and The Undertaker know their characters well enough to know why all of this works and why it all makes sense. So by the time he's taken that deranged header through the table, he's doing it almost as Mick Foley rather than as Mankind. And the real guy has come out for the very first time in WWE. We're about to head into those Jim Ross interviews, and this is that little tell that's on the way.
Yeah, and I love that they gave him the chokeslam there for, which I think was a little bit of a sign of respect from the old dead man to Foley there to give him that. But then it took his proper super killer finisher, the Tombstone, to put him away, and just a perfect little match for me. Really, really enjoyed it.
Magic. And like the babyface turn that was coming for Mankind couldn't have been timed sooner, because how much have we watched him absorb punishment and be brave and be ultimately show quite a lot of babyface traits under a scary heel character. Like it was like, maybe I didn't think it at the time, I don't know, but you're watching this the way we've watched it back. The babyface turn feels inevitable, doesn't it? You're being given reasons to fall in love with this guy.
Yeah, that's it. And once it's almost like this is all like, I don't know, it's like lore, isn't it, for the babyface character? It's all stuff they can go back to. Oh, remember when he did try and kill himself to be world champion? Remember how good he did in the Shawn match, but, could never be shown. All of that bleeds into what makes everybody fall in love with Mick Foley. Like, this catalogue of matches and bumps and things he does for other guys are all the things that make us love him more when he becomes the babyface. And like you say, you get the little foreshadowing of that with his mask taken off. But as I said earlier, I honestly thought, okay, they're doing that for the post-match, because, like, we've got to talk about the post-match. If I'm talking about the match coming off perfectly, not quite perfect on the post-match, is it? As Foley again talks about in his book. And again, it does feel like he's like me traveling. I'm just putting together material for the forthcoming book that I'm going to be putting together. Foley is just literally doing things. So it's a little chapter story, isn't it, his book, as he does talk about not being able to get the fireball off. I think there's a point, isn't there, where it's just like, I think Undertaker tries to put Paul Bearer's like face in Mick Foley's lap, and Foley can't quite get it going, so he seems to have a way with Taker and goes, fuck it, you do it. And then even Taker's fumbling with it, isn't it, with the lighter. I think Foley mentions as well, doesn't he, that like I think they were literally running around ringside going, has anyone got a lighter? Has anybody got some matches? Has anybody got anything? And apparently even fans were like offering their lighter. I don't know how true that is, like across the barrier. Like, it's clear what you're trying to do, lads. Is a work, and what is one that will actually work. And we've all been there if we were ever a smoker in our lives. But Taker does eventually get it off, and it is the right decision. Let's stop trying to fumble and make it look like it's a Mankind accident. I'll just straight up do it to Paul Bearer, and they do make the spot work, and Paul Bearer does sell it well leading to the next match. But it's a comedy of errors until we get there. And I almost feel like until we get to later in 1997, this is just a story of trying to use fire in wrestling, isn't it? It's always like this. There's always these fuck ups, and it's always a hard thing to pull off live.
Well, they got away with it as well, didn't they? Because obviously, if you imagine how this would have played out, it would have been a bit of a do-si-do, and then the Undertaker, having attempted to like get revenge on Mankind for the fire in the eyes, he ends up like burning Paul Bearer's face, and then Paul Bearer probably would have said something like, well, it's not the only time you've accidentally started a fire, is it, dead man? And then that gets you on the path, doesn't it? The big secret and everything we're going to talk about. But instead, because Undertaker does it, and then it's almost like he realizes, oh no, hang on, shit, it being an accident is kind of quite a big part of the story. He I know this is a cliche now, but he looks at his hands and he kind of regrets his actions, doesn't he? So they're still able to make it like, oh, the Undertaker is a man capable of starting fires, but he's not a baddie with it. He didn't mean to kill his brother. That's got to be known, hasn't it? When the time comes that you're going to find out about the story, like the Undertaker can't be this guy that just enjoys setting people on fire. And he looked like he had a perfectly good time doing it to Paul Bearer. So I think that was an improv in the moment to sort of look and go like, oh God, what have I done? Because otherwise the big story that this is setting up wouldn't make sense, would it?
Wouldn't work, would it? No. Good work, to be fair, at the end. We're competent to Mark Calloway. What have we become here? But
you do
pull something there. Something, we'll be getting there, don't worry. And that goatee will be getting flamed by me and not just by you if we're talking fire. But in the end, well done. And that takes us towards our main event. But before that, of course, we've often talked about on this podcast about the Bret Hart leading into the main event promo. Oh. Now we're getting heel versions of that, but I almost feel like, Michael, we're also still getting some of the Bret Hartisms that we know and love at this point on this In Your Heart journey.
Brilliant, man. Absolutely brilliant. Like, I honestly, this was for a show that has been such a disjointed mess. I loved how like Doc all of a sudden got really serious, and he was like, look, Bret, like, you see what happens when it gets out of control between rivals. Look what's just happened. Do you really want that to happen to you and Steve Austin? And Bret says, oh, well, like, if everything's a war and it's a war between me and the fans and a war between me and Steve, it's not my fault, is it? And he lifts all the responsibility away from himself and basically suggests that it's going to be just as violent when he gets out there. And then he does his, as you say, he does his big line, and normally it would be I refuse to lose, and it would be all them things. But this time he's just I guess what I'm going to have to do is end Steve Austin's career, destroy every other wrestler until everyone remembers that I'm the best there is, best was, best ever will be. And then there's Bulldog and Owen again. And he's like, come on, guys. And he just grabs his heel mates and off they go. And they bump into big gorilla no-sell Monsoon, and he just bollocks them into going to the back. But it's so great how he's like, oh, well, I guess I'll just kick the fuck out of everybody. Come on, lads, until they're all stopped in the tracks. I'll give it to Bret, right? We love Bret, and it's Bret. He is the shoot best. However, it's almost fun to have just highlight when the tiny little moments go wrong or the promos last a second too long. He switched it up into this heel character impeccably well, hasn't he? From where we were at 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, and I wish it again. We got a little bit of material to go through, but all of this just made me wish it lasted longer, because I feel like in the backstage promo you're getting a lot of Bret kind of, like I say, workshopping material. I'd have taken that and another thing gimmick further and made it his full-time gimmick in future years. Unfortunately, we don't get that. But I also feel like we're getting workshop Bret in the match here as well. And obviously we've kind of taken this whole show-long story for granted, really. But obviously there's background here with Austin taking the match in the first place, and obviously softball Sid being elsewhere and missing that Raw and all of the background that goes to it. But they've developed a really good story here to tell, and they've leaned into Austin with his bad leg, which is perfect fodder, I think, for the match itself. I don't know how you feel about it. We talked about Undertaker and Mankind as being a bit of a hidden gem in their rivalry that people don't talk about. But this Bret and Austin one is not one that people immediately go to. And I don't know whether that's just the circumstances or the show that it's taking place on. But I wonder if some of that is also, if you see it in the promo, I feel like you see it in the match as well. Because they've been telling this story with Austin's knee, I feel like they have to use that as part of the story of the match, and they do. And Bret going after it actually feels quite fresh. We've basically, for all intents and purposes, since at least January, seen a heel-ish Bret. But this is the first time where it's he's got to work fully as a heel in the match. There's no even slight gray area that you have in the WrestleMania match. He is working full heel. And it makes for an interesting match structure, because it's him on top working over the knee, and it's Austin kind of sell as a babyface. And I think it's a really interesting match, because it just feels, even though we've just gone through that WrestleMania match, quite a fresh dynamic, and one that they're both kind of slipping into these pair of shoes, these roles that they're now going to be in for the rest of the year. And yeah, it's almost kind of watching, I don't know, two experimental artists work on a project before you kind of see the finished article. But it makes it more interesting in some ways, and maybe also gives away why people don't feel as strongly about this match as they do the others.
I don't like it.
I was trying to be nice about it. But yeah. What is that? What it is that doesn't work, though? It just feels very,
I don't like it.
I'm the baddie, so I'll be the baddie. I'm the goodie, so I'll be the goodie. And lacking in nuance, maybe? I don't know what it is. It's kind of boring halfway through for that as well, isn't it? I'm glad you said that.
Do you know what it is, right? There's a phrase that I've had to learn since Sunderland got back promoted to the Premier League. And it wasn't a phrase when we were last in the Premier League, but they call it turnover of possession, don't they? Which basically just means taking the ball off the opposition in the midfield, I think, unless I've got that wrong. But they talk about turnovers and how many you get over the course of a game. This is a 0-0 draw with a load of turnovers. Bret's in charge, but doesn't score. Turnover. Austin's in charge, but doesn't score. Bret works the body part, but can't actually really capitalize. Austin comes back, but never truly gets back on top of Bret Hart. And back and back it goes again. Bret puts the figure four on for a bit, and then Austin recovers for no great drama and wrestles for a bit. Bret puts the figure four on around the ring post for a bit, and Austin gets out of it. They're proper. And the problem with when you're watching a 0-0 game of football is the tension always hangs on one team getting that one goal that's probably going to decide it and make it a 1-0. This is a wrestling match. And if you're going to have a 1-0 wrestling match, you've got to build and build and build so that when that goal goes in, the fans go absolutely nuts for it. So you've got to earn that response at that finish. And every single time the fans even tease getting into whatever story they're telling, another turnover happens, and they all, you can almost hear the building go, oh. And like ultimately it goes so long that like the lethargy is the thing that ends up taking over. The fans feel like, I mean, part of the reason is, by the way, because they've been served a mostly terrible show with one good match and a lot of crap. But
and
like
bad finishes, of which we're all to get another one.
Bad finishes, yeah. Like the biggest pop I wrote down for the match is when like Bret's back in charge for I lost count of how many times they kind of switched their momentum. But like Austin gets the stun gun onto the corner turnbuckle rather than onto the ropes. And that gets a massive response. And then goes for the stunner, but Bret counters by like pulling both of them into the ropes. Yeah. Rather than like just pushing Steve away. Like Bret would always see the stunner as more of a hold than a hit, wouldn't he? So he'd sell the neck as like, he's got me there on the jaw, or whatever. And the counter of like taking both their bodies and just getting tangled up in the ropes, it even like takes the momentum out of the Stone Cold Stunner. The Stone Cold Stunner is impervious to making people go quiet, because what happens, you either hit it, massive pop, you either push it away and everybody goes, oh, like this is maybe one of the only times you'll see the stunner get sort of diluted and diminished. And it's because of the choice of counter they've gone with. And I just felt like that summed it up, because you were just off the back of a big pop with the stun gun. And then they've kind of taken it away. They're doing a thing where like both of them at various points, to your point about who's the heel and who's the baby face, they'll both use like low blows from time to time. And the commentators are arguing about when it's like, because they're trying to get Austin over as the baby face, obviously. So everything Bret does is bad and everything Austin does is good. And Jerry Lawler's sticking up for Bret now and all the usual stuff. But like Austin will hit a low blow and the commentators will be like, well, turnabout's fair play. And then Bret will hit another one later on and they'll be like, well, Austin did it too. And it's just, so like, Bret's smarter than that as a worker. Like normally, everything heelish he would do, he'd have thought about, well, why would my character do that now? So if he's hitting Austin with like the third low blow of the match, it's probably because he's been working the bollocks as a body part, but it never gets to that kind of logic. And it didn't work, and it went long and it had a shit finish.
The finish is horrendous. Like, it's funny though, because like I say, when it feels like watching an artist workshop an album, I feel like there's a good future match with this dynamic in it. But like we've said, like obviously we talk about Survivor Series as a classic match. That's pretty much Bret as the babyface, it's Austin as the heel, and they both know how to do those roles. WrestleMania 13 is special because, of course, it's not, as we've talked about, not a full double turn, but you know it's a bit more shades of grey, and it's about telling that particular story, and they tell it perfectly. This is the first one where the yin and yang is switched the other way around, and like for everything you've said there, I think it's as simple as they just don't fully know how to do it yet. There's the structure of a good match there. I think there's good bits of work in this match in isolation, but they've gone too broad. They've gone too flat with it. Bret's overthinking it. This is what heel Bret Hart should look like. This is how heel Bret Hart should look. Steve Austin hasn't 100% nailed yet how his working style is going to be as a babyface yet. It's close. It's interesting to watch, like I say, like watching somebody put a jazz album together, but it's not quite there. Like it, and it just, if anything, it makes me sad that we don't get like, you know, that these don't have a match at like, say, Survivor Series at Montreal instead of what we get, or we don't get a version of these two characters when they're a little bit more comfortable. I think is there the TV match on Raw maybe the night after, but obviously not a full match. I was going to say, that's all we get.
It's fun. We're being critical and about, if only they could get it as like the heels and babyface. It's like, well, to be absolutely fair to them, it takes them 24 hours and they absolutely fucking nail it. And it's one of the best matches and angles of all time. So it's like when you're dealing with the absolute masters, you can allow them like an off night, you know. But like it is, it's funny as you were saying that. I was thinking, God, as our wrestling OCD brains, we like these things to be neat and tidy, and you've illustrated that perfectly. This should be like a perfect triangle. You should get the first match, the middle match, and the last match. But luckily for us, the last match is the Raw TV one that really does deliver. So I think that's why this.
But that's more angle in it than match, because they're either trying to structure a 25-minute match, and in that they're trying to tell a story of taking Bret out, aren't they?
And in the angle, what it does remind us, and it's worth us kind of giving credit to both men here, they are both working injured, both of them. And I mean, we love somebody else in this podcast, and guess who couldn't be asked to turn up to work when he was injured compared to these two. So like they're going out there. They're going out there hurt. You know, Sid was injured and was supposed to work Bret on this card and can't make the card, you know. So this wasn't necessarily the plan.
Softball season. It was softball season.
It might have been softball Sid, yeah. He kicks around for something. Well, it's not quite the end of our journey with him. But like he's I think he's no-showed, hasn't he? And that's how they flipped the match. And so they weren't it wasn't on the docket to go with this quite yet. But then there was, even in a match that was quite bad and quite dull. You're right, there is some good work. The knee brace, now we look at it and it might as well be part of Austin's leg. It's such a part of his uniform, the knee brace. But here it might as well be bandaged around his ribs, because Bret takes it off and he attacks the knee. And then it's late in the match that he's left it in one place that Austin can use it as a weapon when he's in the sharpshooter. And that's Bret and Austin. Like putting that knee brace there for a rainy day and picking it back up at the exact right point. That's Bret Hart. You know, that's what he thinks about. Like, I'm going to leave this knee brace and I'm going to put it there because in 6 minutes, I'm going to stick you in the sharpshooter and you're going to punish me for taking your knee brace off by grabbing it and hitting me in the head with it. So that like, it's there. The little bits of magic are there, but they're working hurt. It's too long. It's been a terrible night, and they don't get it right.
No. And the finish, like you've noted there, the finish is just, it sums this night up here. It's the schmoz that Bret wanted, isn't it? That's a Survivor Series we get here with fucking the cast, the characters. The post-match is good. I enjoy the post-match here as well, but it's just clear, like you said, we didn't plan on ever doing this match, and we don't really want to find a way out of it. Both of these characters are hot right now. Fuck it, Steve by DQ. And it's just shit, innit? It's just shit. It's Owen and Davey getting involved, and I've loved them all night, but it's just kind of, it's cringe-inducing, isn't it? It's just, it sums up the 20 minutes that they put into this that unfortunately didn't go anywhere, even with the potential that is clearly there with these characters.
Austin in a nice, as you say in the post-match, again, there's so much they get right, it doesn't work on the night, but like by sticking the sharpshooter back on, having smashed Bret's knee with a chair, because it's obviously it's a real injury that Bret's about to have to go through some rehab for. After all that punishment he's taken on his knee, and then Austin can do that back to Bret, so that when he's got the sharpshooter on him, the commentators are saying he's ripping and tearing at that knee, and Bulldog are trying desperately to get to Bret. Austin's great here in the post-match, like getting his pound of flesh for what Bret's done to him in the match. Like it takes on a totally different tone to all the times that he's attacked Bret in the past. Like he's just as big a weapon-toting psycho, but now he's got there's a method to his madness, and he's got justification, and it's the vibe is totally different, and that's what they're getting right, and that's why the angles are better than the matches sometimes, and that's why the promos are the meat of all of this more than the work from here on out, because they've understood that the vibes are spot on. It's some of the interior that needs it needs a bit of work, and they're never going to give it the work with Vince Russo. Like that's the point. That's the point of this era that we've got on the horizon. You are simply not going to get 1995 Bret and 1996 Shawn when the bell rings. Like we've moved on in every regard in that sense.
Massively so. And like I say, as much as like Vince Russo for his fault, you know, while this match is not great by Bret and Austin standards, even if there's some glimmers of good stuff there, we get an all-time angle the night after. And if we enjoyed the ambulance angle last time we talked about one, this takes it to another level. This is the angle I think of when I think of Steve and Bret, but we'll be talking about it on a forthcoming Housekeeping. I can't wait to sit and watch that one back through again. It's fantastic stuff, because that's how, again, it was chewing scenery with these two from a character point of view. And like I say, I don't want to sound too down on the match. Like I say, it sounds like you were a little bit more down on it than me. I'm genuinely interested in when the Retro Boys eventually get to this match on this project or another one, what they think of it and what they make of it, because I think there's enough little bits of Bret's detail in there and the way he works over Steve that I think would appeal to a Garrett type. It's just, like I say, it feels a bit over labor, than it feels a little bit like we're still working out the kinks of how how I work a main event wrestler, main event style as a heel, and how Austin's going to turn everything he's got into being the biggest babyface in the world. And it's maybe a little bit of a reminder that it's still April 1997, and we're not quite there yet. But as we say on Raw the next night, it feels like it's coming fast.
I need to ask it because the show, like everything else, has an extremely disappointing conclusion. Austin's got this like banner from the crowd that says Austin 316. He just walks to the back. They zoom in on the In Your House logo and they say, "Thanks for joining us for In Your House from the World Wrestling Federation," and that's it, right? I think I said this after its time, and we definitely said it after Great White North. Is this the worst one? Is this like? Is this the worst? Because I was thinking about this. I was like, this has got, so Great White North hasn't got anything like Undertaker Mankind on it. Not a thing, right? And obviously Austin and Bret compared to fucking Diesel and Bulldog, it's
true.
Night and day, right? But on paper versus outcome, like as an experience of a show, I think Road Dogg and Rockabilly with Honky Tonk Man's the worst thing we've reviewed in this podcast series. I can't remember an In Your House. We would praise these 2 glorious hours for some nice, neat, tidy matches with some good finishes and some solid conclusions. And this shows the opposite of that. Like only in Mankind Undertaker do you get a match that's the right amount of time with a satisfying conclusion. And even then, they massively botch the biggest like storyline development that comes in the post match. Like the one thing they get right, they still get it wrong.
I think for me, like, I think it's higher than the worst ones we've looked at so far, and Great White North is the one that comes to mind. But like you say, those shows have undercards with matches where it's like Make a Difference Fatu versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley or something like that, where it's just a nice, solid babyface versus heel match with a decent finish, or Mark Mero hits the Wild Thing and we go home. And there's a certain level to those matches, but at least they're kind of complete and they feel like they belong on the show. This is a show where it really does feel like the bloom is off the rose with the In Your House concept a bit. And it's just like, don't need to do finishes. Have you seen what they paid for this thing? Fuck it. We'll do whatever we want. We will literally treat it like a house show. And that's kind of what you get in the finishes. So I'd say it's the worst from a booking point of view. I still think even as, it's on the weekend of Steve and Bret, even that, if you pair that with Undertaker Mankind, I'd be hard pressed to call it the worst show. But the booking does run close. I'd say if we're going to caveat it with the worst booked In Your House we've done so far, probably by a country mile.
That's fair. I was in a really bad mood when it finished. I was just like, this was dire. Yeah. It was like, because I'm always about like in my enjoy. For better and worse, I guess. And I feel like I need to put never mind the bat single, I need to put the Matt signal out in the air because I know he'd understand me. But like, I can separate the high quality of a match if I've had a bad experience with the show. Like, some might say that's my fundamental disagreement with half of AEW's output, is that like, if I've had a boring night watching Dynamite, it simply doesn't matter to me that I've seen a 4.5-star match in the middle of it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally. It can work both ways.
Yeah, and it does, and I know that I'm just as guilty of having the feeling the opposite way around as well, of like a one match. If I love that one match so much, it then saves a show that's otherwise quite bad. So I'm guilty of all the same sort of biases that we all have as wrestling fans. But as the show was wrapping up, I was just like cross with it. I was like, what have you done to my precious house? Like the fact that the set wasn't even there, so it didn't even look right from the off. And then they've delivered this, but I will say this, right? And it's in the interest of balance as a review podcast, which is what we are here. Anyone listening, like, drop your shit and watch the Undertaker Mankind if you haven't. Like, that is a go out of your way match. Yeah,
not even just for the completists. Like, it is. I think it's almost the most perfect version of their match because, as we said,
think you might be right.
It doesn't have the other bells and whistles that you needed in the story beats at the time they did the other matches. If you're literally going in cold to watching it for whatever you fancy watching Undertaker versus Mankind, or to be honest, you just fancy watching a good Undertaker match because there's not that many of them. This is the one I would actually recommend people go to if Sean is on the other side of the ring. I think Foley's a good one beat of that as well. But yeah, it's one of them. It's like a tail end of 1996. We could feel 1997 coming when we're getting excited. Start of 1997 here. We're excited. But 1996 isn't fully gone, and it's those little glimpses of it are the things that are kind of hard to get through. And it's, the turmoil that is going on, at least from a booking point of view, while the tippy top of the card is as fantastic as it is, that's always going to remind us we're not quite there yet. But the good thing is we know our history is written, and we get there, and pretty much as soon as the next night on Raw. So you'll have a big old smile on your face, I reckon, mate, by the time we get to the next housekeeping.
Well, this is it as well. The Monday Night Wars have hit Benno and Hamflett just like they hit America in 1997, because now the housekeepings are full of absolutely white hot angles, and then we've got to watch fucking Rockabilly on the pay-per-view reviews. Like, it's just, I'm not recapping the Honky Tonk Man's hunt for protege in those housekeepings. I'm talking about like Steve Austin lighting the world on fire.
Something to be said for that for picking and choosing. But that is coming up. Obviously, that'll be our next show for us to look forward to. Obviously, if only we could do that with current modern wrestling. But hey ho, it is just a dream. But speaking of which, Michael, you've been picking your spot this last week or so. But I know you're back in the What Culture Towers. What is going on with you guys, and what would you like to plug as we somehow are on our end of year season, and it's pretty much might as well be December at this point where we are.
Indeed. Very much the same as always over at What Culture. We'll be reviewing and previewing all the major WWE and AEW shows. And as it's this time of year, there is plenty of them where, as we're recording this, you may have already watched it, you may have already seen it, but there will be coverage of Survivor Series War Games. Then we're going to be going straight into AEW's Continental Classic. Then we've got NXT's Deadline. Then we will be taking a bit of a break for Christmas, so World's End might be a little bit tricky, but as is often the case when we're all locked out of the office, which by the way soon might look a little different too, we'll be banking a bunch of Christmas stuff as well. So if you're like me and every now and then needing a bit of an escape into your toilet with a pack of biscuits and 5 minutes of reality away from big busy family Christmas, we've got all the content covered for you there as well. So that is in between all the Benno and Hamflett in your houses. Find me, Michael Hamflett, via Google, via What Culture, in all the usual places, apart from Twitter, because I'm treating myself to a full year off the app to see just how much I need it. I can recommend the Grapple Discord. I won't use the comparison and the analogy I came up with before we started recording, but it's been a nice soft landing for me as I take a break from Twitter to see if I really do need it forever. There's some wonderful people on your Discord that you've cultivated there, Benno, so I like it over there.
Oh. Thank you, mate. I was going to say, I wasn't sure whether to plug that on, because I don't want the people who want to come for you and give you grief to just follow you to the Discord and harass you there. But everyone's welcome. Come, do it. Harass Michael. Harass me. Join us over on the Grapple Discord. Now, it is a good old community there that we've got going. And obviously, no stranger to our shows, as we talked about on the last Housekeeping. We just had you on Scary Fed with Matty, which was, I'd say, critically applauded and fan applauded and a massively popular show over on our network. So come over, check us out there for that. We've also been we've done a little quiz last week with JP putting us through our paces. That was a whole load of fun. And at time you'll be listening to this over this weekend, we will have we're calling it the Grapple 6 tape. And again, as we often say on Grapple, that sounds much worse than it is. It is a show all about Sean Waltman, where we're and I know you've seen some of the behind the scenes on this, Michael, as we've put the work together to do that. We've got matches throughout his career, but 6 of them, because his name is 6, because 1 + 2 + 3 equals 6, as we talked about in the early days of In Your House. So we cover him as 1, 2, 3 kid in the WWF. We do a little stop on a match that we've covered here on a Housekeeping. The Action Zone tag is getting a little bit of love as a bonus Sickos match, but we also talk him as 6 in WCW versus Eddie Guerrero. We go back to the WWF when he's X-Pac again against Chris Jericho. We follow him to TNA, and we even get some Shikara in there at the end. As many people listen to this might not know, he did have a critically acclaimed match with the now Sami Zayn, but back when he was El Generico in Shikara. And as we've talked about on Grapple Program and Michael, almost called Gareth, then it has been a very sad realization to realize that at that point, when Sean Waltman was doing a tribute to his own career and was dressing up just one more time as the 1, 2, 3 kid, 39 years of age was my God, finished, done. His career was 11 years, I think, in the past at that point. But well, nothing down for us, mate.
No, 39. God, 39. So at this point, he'd need a good 10 more years of reps before he'd be considered a world champion by either of the 2 North American majors.
There you go. And he'd have to have done a shoot promo with Gates at some point in his career as well to to get that too. But maybe the comeback will be coming, and yeah, maybe we're not quite finished yet, mate. I'll take that as a positive lesson. But yep, that's coming out on Grapple this weekend. So patreon.com/grapple and youtube.com/@grapple. And as always, I am still on Twitter for my sins, not posting much, but I do retweet stuff. You can find me over there at Benson Richarding.
Well, that's great. I guess until next time, then, all there is left for me to say is thank you for the house.
Good night, all.